the gentleman continue to...
Absolutely.
Gentleman else.
Okay. We'll try not to sit down and do this. On page 8, it's line 10 and 11. It's talking about receives from a credible witness or personally observes any sexual contact. What would we define as sexual contact?
Sexual contact is defined. You give me 1 second, I can look it up.
Okay, you go right ahead. You'll probably have to wait on me here in a minute.
Just one.
Sexual contact, as we use it in this bill, is defined in 61.8b1, and then that would be on, I guess, subparagraph 6.
Do you have a page number for that so I can look
This
at
is
it?
in the code. I'm sorry.
It's not in the bill itself.
Is it? I can't remember. Hold on 1 second. I can't remember if it is, if we just used the terms that were, if we stated that the terms that we're using here are found in 61.8b1.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. I can't remember if we did it. We reference it in this bill. It's on page 6.
Can you just tell me what the definition of sexual contact is?
Sure. According to 61...
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting, good morning. I'm Beth Voorhees. We're coming to you live from the state capitol in Charleston as the Senate and House of Delegates debate and pass their final bills for this session. This is the 50th day of the 60-day session. This is called Crossover Day because all Senate bills must be passed and sent to the House, and all House bills must be passed and sent to the Senate. And it looks like they're going to make pretty quick work of it today. The House was in session till late in the evening last night. They were back at it on the House floor at 9 this morning. So we'll begin our coverage in the House of Delegates. They are discussing House Bill 2939 relating to requirements for mandatory reporting of sexual offenses on school premises involving students. A word of caution, there is some language here that you want to be aware of. Let's go to the House of Delegates.
Or the doctor. But when you get into instances of sexual assault, sexual abuse, rape, that kind of thing, that touching is being done for the gratification of the individual performing, the forcible act, the intrusion, the assault, the abuse. So I think that's kind of the way to differentiate those two things. And again, I don't want to get too far from where we originally started here.
I will move on from there, and we may come back to that. But you said, and you named the sexual parts that were touched purposefully. Are you aware that boys and girls both wrestle and can compete with each other, wrestling? It does happen. And if you're at a wrestling event and a male and female were wrestling, and of course you have all kinds of teachers, coaches, school personnel there, and one or either of them, in wrestling there's a lot of touching. Have you ever been to wrestling meet?
I have.
Okay, well, let me continue, please. Now,
yeah.
There is some, hands going across crotches or other things. Now, the one wrestler could contend that that was for sexual gratification, while the other's saying, hey, this was a necessary move. Who's going to determine which is which?
And what you brought up is specifically, and I think specifically addressed by one of the amendments that we adopted in the committee. And if you have the bill with you on page 8.
I do not have that. I apologize.
Okay. No, that's all right. And we adopted an amendment starting on page 16 of line 8. It says, this subsection will not impose any reporting duty upon school teachers or other school personnel who observe or receive a disclosure of any sexual contact, intercourse, or intrusion occurring between students who would not otherwise be subject to section 3, 5, 7, or 9 of Article 8B, Chapter 61. So what that goes to is that if it's an act between two students that's consensual, that doesn't fall into the definitions of 3, 5, 7, 8, 9 as we just discussed, then there's no reporting requirement, there's no liability or responsibility to act.
Well, I understand you use the word consensual, and although I would agree if they're in a wrestling meet and they're wrestling together, they would be consenting to the wrestling, but maybe the one opponent doesn't consent to where the hands were placed in that wrestling. So I would think that would be subjective. Would it not?
I guess there would be some area for subjectivity there, but again, I don't want to get too far off of what we were trying to do here and what the original intent of what we were trying to do here was.
Well, I'm just raising some issues now, and I'll speak that the intent I think is admirable, but.
The gentleman is recognized to ask
Yes.
questions. Does the gentleman have further questions?
Yes, I do. Let's go back to the immediately that my colleague was talking about. Would you believe that the definition of immediately from here is at once, instantly, straight away, instantly, now, directly, promptly, forthwith? Goes on down here to say without lapse of time. Isn't that immediately?
I mean, it sounds like the usage that we use in everyday life regarding that word.
And I'm going to try to give you some real life examples. What if you're at a sporting event? There's a lot of places in our county that they don't have cell phone service, or the two-way radios on school buses aren't effective. Mm-hmm. But what if you were at a place where you may have witnessed something, but there's no one around? I, as a bus operator, don't know anyone there, don't know who to report this to, have no way of contacting. What am I supposed to do with that?
Well, then I think that when you were able to have radio contact or cell phone usage, if immediately upon getting that reception or that ability to then notify someone, then it's my belief that meets the requirement.
So if after we leave that event and we're traveling down the road and I hear my cell phone ding saying that we have a cell phone signal again, I'm to pull off the road and make a phone call?
I think that gives you the ability to, yes.
All right, let's...
Word, and why, and if I can, that's precisely the kind of reason we didn't impose a time frame requirement of 12 hours, of 36 hours, 24 hours, however so, because different circumstances, different events lead to exactly what you said, potentially the ability for the term immediately to have a slight, interpretation to it. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't box that into a precise time measurement.
I will just point back to the definition of immediately that I read. It seems like it's instantly, but we'll move on from there. I won't belabor that point with you. Let's go to another instance where there is some type of event at the school, could be any kind, from athletic to plays, dramas, whatever it may be. And there is a teacher from another state at that event, not from West Virginia, a teacher from another state. Are they also held to this, and how will they know that we have this law, and how would that apply from somebody from another state being here?
Or witnesses.
So it would. Yeah, because this applies to anyone who, going back to what I said earlier, observes or receives a credible report of.
But what if this teacher witnesses something? They're from another state, they witness something, but they're unaware that our laws are much more defined than theirs in their state.
I would think in a case like that, and maybe I'm from a good county, we'll say, I would think in that event the teacher would do the right thing as they saw it for the student themselves and make a report of that. I would hate to think that just because a teacher was from out of state, they would say, well, I mean, these kids, they don't go to my state school or the school where I teach, so I'm not going to make any sort of report to law enforcement or to anyone else that may be here at the school of what I just witnessed.
Well, I don't disagree with you on that, but according to our laws, they're going to have to discern, they're going to have to know what sexual contact is defined in this bill, and if somebody had said something to them, they'll have to determine if that witness was credible or not.
Again, I think that in that determination of what's credible and what not, or what's not, then goes into the hands of law enforcement, who has the tools, the ability, the know-how, the background to conduct that investigation and really determine what you're talking about.
Okay, I'm going to paint another picture for you. I'm just trying to give you some scenarios here, sir. We have a teacher in the hall on hall duty. There are cameras in that hall monitoring the activities in the hall, and this is in between class exchange. And there's some, it's crowded, there's some students down the hall. The teacher's looking in that direction, and the cameras will attest to that. Something happens that there is an intentional, inappropriate sexual contact. But that teacher isn't looking at that area. I mean, even though they're looking down the hall, it's pretty narrow. The teacher's looking over here to the other side because there's an issue going on over there that they think might be problematic. And of course, the teacher does not report this. And a little bit later, the next day, the student says it's brought to the attention. The student tells the parent comes to school, says, listen, so-and-so was in the hall and they were looking at this and this is what happened. They look at the video is going to say, yes, the teacher was there, the teacher was looking in that direction. What defense does this teacher have that they didn't see that? That's an
excellent point. That's a great picture to paint, because that goes to the heart of subsection C on 8, and that states, teacher or school personnel who receives a disclosure from a credible source or personally observes the incident. So in this case, the defense or the rebuttal of the teacher is, I didn't personally observe it. I mean, we have left that language in there for the teacher to say, I didn't personally observe it. And so that's what they say, because we left that language in there for them.
Well, to the gentleman, I am not an attorney, but would you not think that an attorney that got their hands on a video showing the teacher looking in that direction, whether they were successful or not, could mount a formidable challenge that that teacher was looking that way?
One could, but also, just like any trial, determinations of fact are left to the trier of fact, whether it be the judge or the jury. And if the teacher then, appears to be a credible witness and that they're not just trying to get themselves out of something that they saw and didn't do, they can say, I did not personally observe that.
I have many more questions, but I'm going to leave it at that. I thank you.
Cases AB 3, 5, 7, and 9 that go to the discuss age requirements, age differences, that kind of thing, because we didn't want to have any loopholes in there where you had maybe a middle school, high school that was combined, and you had a 18-year-old kid that was a senior at the high school around an 11-year-old student or 12-year-old student at the middle school.
All right, this is
portion.
Beth Voorhees again. We've gone back to the House where discussion continues about House Bill 2939 relating to requirements for mandatory reporting of sexual offenses on school premises involving students. Let's go back to the House of Delegates.
Fully vetted in judiciary. Every scenario under the sun was brought up, many of which were repeated today on the floor. And the protections were weighed, protections of the students that attend our schools and the protections of the teachers that run them. And we understand the value in protecting both of them. And we fully vetted it. As the bill is right now, if a teacher sees something, they have a duty to report. Duty to report to law enforcement. Many law enforcement are actually on campuses throughout our state. So their duty to report ends there. They report it to law enforcement then puts it in their hands because they're well-trained, established, and know what to do with the facts. And that's what we saw in this bill that was important. When you measure it against the importance of protecting our children inside those schools, then it's a no-brainer. And we fully vetted it. It was one of the few bipartisan bills to come through judiciary, honestly. In many committees we have a bunch of rabble from both sides of the aisle, not much agreement. But we were able to have that on this bill. And we improved it, and I think it's a strong bill, and I urge its adoption. Thank you.
John for the 43rd, Doug Hartman. Lady from 46, Doug Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to speak to the bill.
Lady may proceed.
As many of you know, I wear many hats. And it's because of those hats I'm speaking against this bill. I've been a teacher, a principal. I've been a lawyer for teachers' unions. I've been a lawyer for school boards. I've been a lawyer for individual teachers and principals. And I think we're creating a nightmare. I've been a supporter of trying to protect our children from sex offenses since I've been here. In fact, 2 bills passed today that I sponsored. One of them that I dreamed up because of something like this. But I'm going to have to tell every teacher who comes to me, you got to report it, whatever it is. Don't risk not reporting it. I'm going to have to tell every principal that. They're going to overwhelm law enforcement. They're going to overwhelm the state police. They're going to overwhelm the system, and it's going to take a lot of time when they already have to report it. We already have a system that requires that we report, and it's rarely abused. And I think this is a terrible mistake. Another mistake I feel is sex is a powerful force, and kids touch and kiss, and sometimes they do things that might be misinterpreted, and I'm going to tell the principal and teacher, you got to report it. But a lot of good kids are going to get into the juvenile justice system. And once you're in that juvenile justice system, you're in it. I've represented a lot of them. A lot of good kids are going to get in the juvenile justice system until they can get out of it and show that they didn't do anything wrong or they're not going to do anything wrong again. I think the system isn't broken, believe it or not, and I'm a strong supporter of protecting children from sex offenses. And I say, vote against this bill. Thank you.
Lady from the 51st, Doug Flashhour.
Thank you. Will the gentleman continue to yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering about, there's a series of provisos in here, and the one that's the first, I think maybe the first proviso on page 8, this subsection will not impose any reporting duty on school personnel who observe or receive a disclosure of consensual sexual contact. What about, so they don't have to report if it's consensual, right?
Correct.
Well,
Between two students, yes.
What about when you're not of the age of consent?
Well, I think that goes to what the lady from, I don't know, I can't see. Wyoming County that we were discussing earlier, that goes to the teachers'
judgment
in their classroom, in the school, that kind of thing, because when you get into, students that are of that younger age.
Well, it's 16. It's not a younger age.
Well, there are part of the statutes that, and I can't remember if it's 3, 5, 7, or 9, that discuss the age of 12 as well. And I don't have those statutes.
Well, I'm talking about statutory rape.
Yes, and some of those statutes address the age of 12 as well. And I don't have them in front of me. I'd have to look them up.
Well, I guess I'm wondering, this absolves you from responsibility for reporting if it's consensual. And I guess I see a conflict between the other statutes that require, that say a young person cannot consent under a certain age.
Well, I think that we put that proviso in there to not put,
Right, I understand why you did it. You wanted to protect teachers who observed innocent conduct. But I think we've kind of opened a can of worms. Don't you agree that that's a potential problem, that conflict between?
I respectfully would have to disagree, because I don't see that when we agreed upon this, and we talked about this in committee, I don't foresee any proverbial can of worms being opened up by the language that we've
Well, I think it puts
in.
teachers in a hard spot because they don't know the law, what the age, if it's 16 or if it's 12, and which of these am I supposed to report, and which of these are going to subject me to a misdemeanor. I think, I know that
Does the lady have further questions of the gentleman?
No. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 2nd, Doug Well, to close debate.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am not sure there's much more that I can say about this bill. I think that at its heart, the most important thing to know is that the intent of this bill is to get the information that the teachers may see, that the principals may see or have a credible witness to, into the hands of law enforcement as soon as possible. And law enforcement will then conduct that investigation because they have the background, the knowledge on how to do it. And I think this is a good bill, and I urge its passage.
Question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? So the clerk will close
All
the
right, we
machine
have
and
seen that pass overwhelmingly. We're going to move to the Senate now, where they are taking up another bill, and we expect an override of the governor's veto on the Unborn Child Protection Act. Let's go to the Senate.
The House amendment added 2 citizen members to the Sheriff's Bureau Board representing the general public, who shall be appointed by the Secretary of the Department of the Military Affairs and Public Safety with the consent of the Senate. I move adoption of the amendment.
The senator from Jackson moves the Senate concur in the House amendments to engross Senate Bill 435. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on passage of the bill as amended. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Senior Senator from the 4th. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
The Clerk of the House announced that the House has amended and passed engrossed Senate Bill 477, supplementing, amending, decreasing, and increasing appropriation from State Road Fund to DOH.
Message will be received. The senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill number 477. I'll explain the amendment. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this is a supplementary appropriation bill, and the House amendment merely realigned existing appropriations within the framework of the bill. They did not change any amounts, and I move adoption of the amendment.
The senator from Jackson moves the Senate concur in the House amendments to engross Senate Bill 477. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on passage of the bill as amended. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Senator from Braxton. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage be used to make it so effective.
Senator from Jackson moves the bill be made effective from passage. Request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none on this question. 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2015, requiring the legislative auditor to conduct performance reviews and audits for every government spending unit, including all members of the Board of Public Works and the legislature.
Message will be received. Bill be referred to the Committee on Government Organization and the Committee on Finance.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2239, creating a logistical advisory committee.
The House has gone into recess until 12:30. The Senate has just begun its floor session. The House early this morning voted to override the governor's veto on House Bill 2568, the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. We understand that as soon as they're done with this business, the Senate will take up the same vote. So we're going to stay in the Senate.
Exempting valid nonprofit organizations from licensing requirements of the West Virginia Alcoholic Beverage Control Authority during certain events.
Message be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2502, possessing deadly weapons on school buses or on the premises of educational facilities.
Message be received. Bill be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2515, relating to elk restoration.
The message will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Natural Resources, then the Committee on Finance.
Engrossed House Bill 2521, clarifying the scope, application, and methods for error correction required by the CPRB.
Message will be received. Bill will be referred to the Committee on Pensions, then the Committee on Finance.
Engrossed Committee Substitute for House Bill 2585, requiring leaseholders of mineral interests to notify the owners of the minerals when there is an assignment to the lease to another party.
Message will be received. Bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Engrossed House Bill 2675, reducing certain severance taxes that are dedicated to the Workers' Compensation Debt Reduction Fund.
Message will be received. Bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Engrossed Committee Substitute for House Bill 2718, transferring funds remaining in the Racetrack Modernization Fund to the State Road Fund and closing the Racetrack Modernization Fund.
The message will be received. Bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Engrossed House Bill 2726, clarifying choice of law issues and products liability actions. The House changed the effective date only.
Message will be received. The Senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the changed effective date of engrossed bill, House Bill 2726.
Senator from Jackson moves Senate concur in the change effective date of engrossed House Bill 2726. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the motion adopted. The Senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from July 1, 2015.
The Senator from Jackson moves the bill be made effective from July 1, 2015. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Senator from Cabell. Has every member voted? If so, clerk close machine, ascertain the results on this question. 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent and not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from July 1, 2015. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 2797, changing the term mentally retarded to intellectually disabled and changing the term handicapped to disabled.
Message to be received. Bill be referred to Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Engrossed Committee Substitute for House Bill 2840.
Just a word, as long as the Senate President's microphone is off, the room kind of stays silent, and that's why it's silent right now. There's nothing wrong with your feed, there's nothing wrong with your TV set, but they are consulting each other up at the speakers at the Senate President's podium. We don't know if they're going to take up the veto override at this morning session or if they'll wait until tonight. Ashton Mara, our reporter in the Senate, tells us that they have not received the governor's veto message yet in the Senate. But we'll keep you posted and see what's going on. The House is in recess, so we'll stay in the Senate.
And payment of taxes.
Message be received. Bill be referred to Committee on Finance.
Engrossed Committee Substitute for House Bill 2878, creating a one-stop electronic business portal in West Virginia.
Message be received. Bill be referred to Committee on Government Organization.
Engrossed House Bill 2880, creating an addiction treatment pilot program.
Message to be received, bill be referred to Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Engrossed House Bill 2914, providing for voluntary dissolution of resort area district.
Message to be received, bill be referred to Committee on Judiciary.
Engrossed Committee Substitute for House Bill 2916, providing limited borrowing authority to the Governor for the completion of renovations to the Capitol Complex Building 3.
Message to be received, bill be referred to Committee on Finance.
Engrossed Committee Substitute for House Bill 2999, relating to neonatal abstinence centers.
Message to be received, bill be referred to Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Engrossed Committee Substitute for House Bill 3006, relating to the determination of the adjusted rate established by the Tax Commissioner for the administration of tax deficiencies.
Message be received, bill be referred to Committee on Finance.
Engrossed House Bill 3017, addressing sudden cardiac arrest in interscholastic athletes.
Message be received, bill be referred to Committee on Education. Communications from the Executive.
There are none.
Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2381, providing a teacher mentoring increment for classroom teachers with national board certification who teach and mentor at certain schools, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Dave Seipel, Chair.
For to be received under the original double committee reference, bill be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2755.
And there you heard it. They have no messages from the governor. That means the governor's veto message as relates to House Bill 2568 has not reached the Senate, so they can't override a message that they don't have. So we'll stick with the Senate and see what else is on their agenda for today.
Resolutions.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 51 by Senators Stallings and Kirkendall, requesting DOH name bridge in Boone County the U.S. Army Private First Class Samuel C. Ball Memorial Bridge.
Under Rules of Senate, the resolution lie over 1 day. Motions. Petitions.
There are none.
Unfinished business.
Committee substitute for Senate Concurrent Resolution 20, requesting DOH name stretch of road in McDowell County the U.S. Army First Sergeant Joe C. Alderman Memorial Road.
Questions on adoption of the resolution? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 22, requesting DOH name portion of U.S. Route 119 in Boone County the U.S. Army Sergeant Mark Andrew Messer Memorial Road.
Questions on adoption of the resolution? All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the resolution adopted. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 25, requesting DOH name bridge in Harrison County the U.S. Army Private First Class Nick A. Cavallaro Memorial Bridge and U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Benjamin T. Portero Memorial Bridge.
Questions on adoption of the resolution? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 29, requesting DOH name bridge in Kanawha County the Rosie the Riveter Memorial Bridge.
Questions on adoption of the resolution? All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Committee substitute for Senate Concurrent Resolution 34, requesting DOH name bridge in Greenbrier County the U.S. Army Air Corps Lieutenant William H. Corcoran, Jr. Memorial Bridge.
Questions on adoption of the resolution? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Committee substitute for Senate Concurrent Resolution 35, requesting DOH name bridge in McDowell County the U.S. Army Corporal Zane Joseph Giro and U.S. Marine Corps Corporal John Anthony Tony Giro Memorial Bridge.
Questions on adoption of the resolution? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the resolution adopted. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 40 requesting DOH name bridge in Putnam County the U.S. Army Sergeant DeForest Lee Talbert Memorial Bridge.
Questions on adoption of the resolution? All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 41 requesting DOH name bridge in Berkeley County the W.C. Honecker and Clyde Spies Memorial Bridge.
The questions on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Committee substitute for House Concurrent Resolution 6 naming the Army Air Force Sergeant Everett Wayne Bud Sell Memorial Bridge.
Questions on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Committee substitute for House Concurrent Resolution 20 naming the Virginia and U.S. Army Major Woodrow Cook Memorial Road.
Questions on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 234 exempting certain water and sewer utilities owned by political subdivisions from PSC jurisdiction. The bill was advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Are there amendments?
Senator M. Hall moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause and inserting
The senior senator from the 4th.
Mr. President, I ask for consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
First of all, this amendment provides a technical cleanup of Senate Bill 234 to ensure that bondholders have adequate recourse in the event of a bond deficiency if it should arise with one of the municipalities or PSDs. This will not cause bond rating issues. Also, Senate Bill 234, as amended, will remove non-public service districts and 17 municipal utilities from the jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission for certain things. The bill will allow counties and local governments to be responsible for rate changes. The bill provides that in the event of a bond deficiency, bondholders will have adequate recourse for bond deficiencies. That's a summary.
Is there discussion? If not, the question is on the I'm sorry. The clerk has an amendment to the amendment.
Senators Snyder and Blair moved to amend the amendment on page 8, section 9.
The senator from Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Jefferson.
Actually, it folded in because the basically strike and insert a committee substitute what the finance chairman has just offered. So we're folding an amendment that was here to the original bill that the government organizations chair and I agreed should have probably been added to the bill when and realized that when it left committee. So we're just simply adding this into the technical cleanup. Well, the essence of the amendment says, as the bill left committee and is before you today, that PSDs have to, if they have the threshold of $3 million or above, will be exempt from Public Service Commission overview. That's the way the bill is before you today. This amendment adds in not only the $3 million that's in the bill in revenue, but adds a customer base must be at least 4,500 customers or above. And I'd like to speak to the amendment.
Is there discussion? Senator from
Thank you, Mr.
Jefferson.
President. What this does, so that the code doesn't become outdated in the future, it could very well be that this $3 million limit would be in code for 30 or 50 years or 10 years as dollar values change. And the perfect example of that is the reason that $3 million was put in a dollar value instead of a customer base. That's the way the Public Service Commission tracks these utilities. They'd have to ferret around a little bit to find their customer base, but they're classified at the Public Service Commission in different classes of revenue and not particularly customer base. And actually their way of doing that is old. Their top classification now is $1 million and above, which is a whole lot of them. So even their own classification is way outdated because dollar values in code. This, as the bill is before you today, and the amendment by the finance chair is $3 million. This simply puts a customer base in and seals it so we know who we're talking about. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there further discussion? Senior Senator from the 4th.
Say we support the gentleman's amendment.
Further discussion? If not, the question is on the adoption of the amendments to the amendment offered by the senator from Jefferson. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the amendments adopted. Now the question is on the adoption of the amendment as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. I declare the amendments adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
If not, the bill is then ordered to engrossment. The clerk will read the bill a third time.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 234, exempting certain water and sewer utilities owned by political subdivisions from PSC jurisdiction. Third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? Senator from Berkeley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the senior senator from Putnam yield?
Senior senator from the 4th yield. Senator yields.
Certainly.
Senator from Berkeley.
Senator, I just want to make sure we still have it so that the county commission would be the ones that would actually vote on the rate increase, that a proposal would come from, I guess, the PSD, and then the county commission would be, or the political subdivision. It could be a municipality or a county commission would still vote?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
It's still
All
in
right,
there.
thank you.
Thank you.
The junior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The senator from Putnam yield for me, please.
Senior senator from the 4th yield. Senator yields. Junior senator from the 8th.
Just a quick question. In committee, the senator from Jefferson offered the amendment that really won me on this bill. I think it's a great bill, but my question is, there were 9 PSDs exempt under the original. Has that changed?
No, sir, it is not.
Still 9?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Senior senator from the 4th.
Essentially, I thought in the amendment, basically, in the explanation of the amendment, it was kind of an explanation of the bill itself. It basically, by the metrics that have been approved on the floor here today, and the question of the gentleman from Berkeley, it basically removes from jurisdiction certain aspects of regulatory oversight for non-public service districts and 17 municipal utilities who meet these numerical metrics that we've determined today. And local governments do have a say. And a part of the reason for some delay in bringing this to the floor was so we could work it out with the people, the governor's office and different ones in terms of the bond question, which has been apparently mitigated and worked out. So that basically is the summary of the bill. Urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? The senator from Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just for clarification, to expand upon the good finance chairman's discussion, the public service districts that would be covered by this bill, so that the public knows and we as members know, there are actually 8 because Berkeley County has 2 of these, but there are 9 entities. Berkeley County Public Water District, Berkeley County Public Sewer District, Clay Park Public Sewer District, Greater Harrison Public Service District, Logan County Public Service District, Mason County Public Service District, Ohio County Public Service District, Putnam County Service District, and Raleigh County Public Service District. As the bill is before you, even with the amendments, those are the utilities under public service districts that you're exempting from total control under the Public Service Commission. I urge adoption of the bill.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, clerk close machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Senator M. Hall moved to amend the title of the bill.
The questions on the adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 320, standardizing notification process for revocation of certificates of authority. Third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill. The senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 320 amends 2 sections of the West Virginia Code. One of them is in Chapter 31B, and the other is in Chapter 47. Chapter 31B is the Uniform Limited Liability Company Act. Chapter 47 is the Uniform Partnership Act, Uniform Limited Partnership Act. This bill comes to us by way of request from the West Virginia Secretary of State. The bill addresses in both chapters the situation when a foreign limited liability company, in the case of the former, or foreign limited partnership, in the case of the latter, has to have its certificate of authority revoked. And the bill clarifies where and how the Secretary of State delivers that notice. If the bill is adopted, what it will require is for the Secretary of State to send the notice of revocation to the registered agent of the corporation or partnership. Under law, every foreign corporation or foreign limited partnership is required to have a registered agent in its filings in West Virginia. So that's where the notice goes, or it says if there is no registered agent, then to the principal office of the limited liability company or the limited partnership. Just clarifies where and how notice is delivered in cases of revocation. I urge passage of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 325, relating to filing of candidates' financial disclosure statements. Third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill. The senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 325 amends a single section of the West Virginia Code, and it's a section contained within the West Virginia Governmental Ethics Act and the Ethics Commission. In short summary, the members will remember we passed earlier this session a bill that established the deadline for candidates to file their financial disclosures with the West Virginia Secretary of State, and after which, if a candidate had not, he or she would be removed from the ballot because the law requires ballot disqualification. This is very similar, but it relates to the West Virginia Ethics Act financial statements. As every member in this room knows, all candidates for public office, for legislative office, are required to file with the Ethics Commission a financial disclosure. And this bill provides some hard dates. It's already the law that a candidate cannot take office without filing the required disclosure, but this bill establishes that the disqualification occurs in accordance with Section 19, Section 19, Article 5, Chapter 3 of the Code, and establishes the date for that at the 84th day prior to the general election. I would urge passage of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Boone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the senator from Morgan yield?
Senator from Morgan yield. Senator yields. Senator from Boone.
Thank you. What duty on behalf of the Ethics Commission is there to make sure that we receive the forms to fill out, et cetera? Is that addressed here, or? Because I think there's been some communication recently where the forms were not sent, they were not filled out, then we were notified, oh, you need to fill this out. Could have been one day late or something.
It's a great question, and I thank the senator from Boone for the question. There is nothing in this bill, because we're dealing only with one section of the code, that addresses specifically the sending of the forms by the Ethics Commission to candidates for public office. And so it may very well be that it is the responsibility of the candidates to find out and fill them out and get them in without any prompting from the Ethics Commission. What this does is it says the Ethics Commission is required to file duplicate copies of the statements when filed with the, and that would be with the Secretary of State, or for municipal candidates with the town, or for a county candidate with the county commission.
Right. Maybe something we need to look at also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? The senior senator from 15th.
President, I don't sit on judiciary, but it just now occurred to me, is there anything in this bill that will actually notify the candidate that they haven't received it, the Ethics Commission hasn't received their report before this takes effect and takes them off the ballot?
Will the senator from Morgan yield?
Be happy to yield.
Senator yields.
There is nothing in this bill that requires the Ethics Commission to notify. Is the gentleman asking whether they have to notify a candidate first that they haven't received the?
Yeah, say that we know that whatever the deadline is, that 10 days before that deadline, that there's a certified letter that goes out to that candidate letting them know that, hey, we have not received this, before they would be removed from the ballot.
Your question's a good one. Nothing in this bill addresses that at all.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea, those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, clerk close the machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent. Not voting more than a majority of those present. Having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 352, expanding scope of cooperative associations to goods and services, including recycling. Third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? The senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Judiciary Committee substitute for this bill, Senate Bill 352, addresses cooperative associations. And there are, within the bill, looks like eight amended sections of code. The bulk of them are in Chapter 19 of the West Virginia Code, which is in Article 4, which deals with and addresses cooperative associations. And this bill expands some definitions regarding who are qualified persons to participate in or have cooperative associations, and it's pretty expansive. It defines and includes persons engaged in producing, preserving, harvesting, drying, processing, manufacturing, canning, packing, grading, storing, handling, utilizing, marketing, financing, selling, distributing, shipping, or procuring, providing of agricultural products or goods and services, byproducts thereof. There was great interest in agricultural cooperatives, and that was a subject of, I believe, an interim study over the course of the preceding year. It also includes, Mr. President, such things within the definition of goods and services as food and beverage, arts and crafts, woodworking, furniture making, and recycling. Within the bill, in addition to the addition of these definitions, the bill allows defines that 3 or more persons who are qualified persons may form a cooperative. And the bill provides that the purpose of a cooperative association within those definitions is to engage in one or more qualified activities in the marketing or selling of agricultural products or goods or services. There are powers delineated for cooperative associations. There are amendments to those sections, eligibility criteria, stock rights, membership rights, marketing contracts, regulations regarding interest or in other corporations or associations, an exemption from the scope of the motor vehicles chapter. The bill became of interest. It was expanded to permit and allow, in limited circumstance, recycling cooperatives. And I know that was of interest to at least some sector of folks here in Kanawha County who came to the Judiciary Committee to discuss it. It's permissive language for the most part, and it permits a broader utilization of this cooperative form of business. Mr. President, members, I would urge passage of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 1 nay, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 363, establishing maximum rates and service limitations for reimbursement of health care services by Court of Claims. Third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? The Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 363 addresses the Court of Claims, and it covers the rates and limitations to be paid by limitations on rates and fees to be paid by the Court of Claims in connection with health care services. As members of this body know, the Court of Claims is really an adjunct to the legislature, and it exists to make payment of those claims which are really moral obligations of the state of West Virginia, but which are otherwise precluded or barred. People are precluded or barred from recovering them because of the constitutional sovereign immunity of the state of West Virginia. Our Court of Claims does a great job in a number of things, including the administration of the Crime Victims Compensation Fund. And this bill creates a single new section of the code. It's in Chapter 14, Article 2A. The new section is Section 19B. And it allows the Court of Claims to establish by rule rates for reimbursement or payment of health services. And so why does that matter? How does that come up? It comes up all the time. Everyone knows you have private insurer, Blue Cross Blue Shield, or even Medicaid. All the third-party payers negotiate with medical providers what they pay, or they limit what they pay. They don't pay 100% of a bill generally. This permits the Court of Claims to set a similar schedule and for payment of medical expenses and fees for those claims which it fields and considers and ultimately pays under a legislative appropriation from the West Virginia Legislature. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. President. Otherwise, I would urge passage of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Committee on the Judiciary move to amend the title of the bill.
Questions on the adoption of the title amendment? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 366, creating Patient Protection and Transparency Act. Third reading of the bill.
The questions on passage of the bill. The senior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill would require that the West Virginia Office of the Insurance Commissioner to post information on its website in a consumer-friendly format pertaining to each health care plan offered through the West Virginia Health Care Benefits Exchange, the ACA Exchange. The information would be required to be made available, or the information which would be required to be made available is related to the names and types of providers in the networks, information about exclusions and restrictions in the plans provided, information on co-insurance, co-payments, cost sharing under the plans, information pertaining to prescription coverage under the plans, and information about appealing plan decisions, and contact information for the carriers. Currently, I believe there's just one carrier. The bill will also permit the West Virginia Office of the Insurance Commissioner to promulgate legislative rules relative to this provision.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? The senator from Boone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this bill. This transparency is very important. This whole insurance is very complicated, obviously, and people really need to know what they're getting. They think they're having a low premium, and they end up not getting much for that premium. Frequently, you get what you pay for, but this transparency really is a good thing, certainly for our more elderly patients particularly, who need to be guided. Frankly, I worry that using a portal is not enough, that we might not be tech savvy enough, but certainly this is a step in the right direction toward transparency, and I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain results on this question. 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 385, regulating transportation network companies.
The senator from Jackson.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further consideration of Senate Bill 385 be deferred to the foot of bills on first reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 446, increasing number of terminals authorized by limited video lottery retailer license. Third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill. The senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 446 amends a single section of the West Virginia Code. It's in Chapter 29, Article 22B, which is the Limited Video Lottery Act. The bill increases from 5 to 7 the number of terminals that a video lottery retailer may have, and it requires, in a new subsection, to accommodate this change, the Lottery Commission to conduct bidding no later than September 1st, 2015 for the permits, the balance of the permits. What we found out during the course of the consideration and deliberation on this bill in committee is that while the permits were capped at 9,000 in the state, we didn't increase the number. Not all those have been permitted or issued. This might generate a little bit of revenue for the state of West Virginia. I urge passage of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? The senator from Boone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm guessing that these added video lottery terminals will be smoking terminals. So these would be, would the senator from Morgan yield?
Well, the senator from Morgan yields. Senator yields.
These be smoking terminals there?
I would be happy to yield, and no, not under current law or under this bill. Of course, as the gentleman knows, the question of whether facilities are smoking or non-smoking at the moment under current law is regulated and controlled by county health departments.
Soon to be changed.
I don't know that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I will acknowledge that to the gentleman from Boone that the Senate has passed a measure to the House, but I have no idea what its fate will be there.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member, Senator from Jefferson. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 29 yeas, 4 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
It appears Senate President Bill Cole has left the podium for now. Just wanted to update you on a few of the pieces of business that you saw. You noticed that Senate Bill 385, regulating transportation network companies such as Uber and Lyft, was moved to the foot of bills on third reading. That's because a brand new bill was introduced, Senate Bill 585, relating to regulation of transportation network and taxi cab companies. And what that bill does is take the Public Service Commission completely out of regulating these Uber and Lyft type of operations, and also taxi cab companies, because taxi cabs have been regulated by the Public Service Commission, and the Senate wants to take that out. Also coming up is Senate Bill 453. This relates to motor vehicle dealers, distributors, wholesalers, and manufacturers.
Madam President.
Let's go back to the Senate.
May I take this moment of personal privilege to say how much I enjoy seeing you in that chair.
Thank you.
Your long tenure here in service to the citizens of the state. This amendment is technical cleanup, Madam President. It clarifies that all motorhomes and travel trailers are going to be treated equally within the context of the bill, regardless of their gross weight. I would urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there any objection? Pardon me. I'm sorry. Is there discussion? The Senator from Mercer.
Thank you, Madam President. Under Senate Rule 43, I move that I be excused from voting on all questions relating to Senate Bill 453.
The Senator from Mercer moves that he be excused from voting on all questions relating to Senate Bill 453. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The Senator from Mercer is excused from voting on all questions relating to Senate Bill 453. Is there further discussion? If not, the question is on the adoption of the amendment offered by the Senator from Morgan. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
Yes, ma'am. Senator Trump moved to amend the bill on page 17, section 10, line 9, after the word affiliates.
The Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Madam President.
What we've just seen there is Senate President Bill Cole did have to leave the podium so that he could take his seat on the floor and ask now Senate President Donna Boley to be excused from voting on this bill, Senate Bill 453, relating to motor vehicle dealers, distributors, wholesale, and manufacturers. Bill Cole is a well-known auto dealer in southern West Virginia, and he is excused from voting on this bill. So let's go back to the House, let's back to the Senate, and here's some more.
Improvements within a 10-year period preceding the matters which are the subject of the section in which the amendment is inserted. I would urge adoption of the amendment.
Next up will be Senate Bill 541, regulating and control of elections. This is a financial campaign finance bill, and that is coming up next after we deal with Senate Bill 453 relating to motor vehicle dealers. Back to the Senate.
Morgan and say that you're the most attractive Senate President we've ever had in this chamber.
Thank you.
But a point of inquiry, I may be missing it, but I'm looking at the under amendments on our chamber automation system, and I keep hitting amendments and keep saying no amendments available. Is it not showing, or is it? I appreciate the explanation of the senator from Morgan, but I'm just wondering if the amendments are in the system and I'm just
amendment on the floor.
Technologically incompetent.
The senator from Morgan. Senator yield. Will the senator yield?
Be happy to yield. We just thought it would be easier if we didn't show you what we were doing. This is how we.
I was afraid of that, Senator.
No, to the gentleman from Marshall, I don't know. They should be loaded into the system and available for viewing on the iPads. I have a printed copy of it here.
The amendment? The amendment is not in the system yet. They're working to get it in there.
I just want to see it. Well, I appreciate your explanation, Senator, and would appear that your explanation is spot on, so I'll trust you this time. Next one we'll worry about.
I thank the senator greatly. Again, Madam President, I urge, and actually, I guess we're dealing with those separately, so it'd be we're dealing with them. Madam President, I ask that the amendments on this page then be asked to consider it as a single amendment.
Is there objection? The chair hears none.
And let me follow then. The second part of that is also a fairly technical matter, but it relates to a property use agreement entered into between a dealer and a manufacturer, and as referred to in paragraphs 1 through 5, inclusive subdivision C, section 7 of the article, and what occurs when the property use agreement terminates and ceases to be effective. It requires that at the time the dealer agreement is terminated. So I would urge adoption of the whole, those which I explained separately.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question on the adoption of the amendments offered by the senator from Morgan. Are all those in favor say aye? Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. I declare the amendments adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, ma'am.
If not.
Okay.
If not, the bill is ordered and engrossed.
If not, the bill is in order to engrossment. The clerk will read the bill a third time.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 453 relating to motor vehicle dealers, distributors, wholesalers, and manufacturers. Third reading of the bill.
The question is on the passage of the bill. The senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Madam President. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 453 addresses the relationship between automobile manufacturers and their franchise dealers. We have a substantial body of law and code already on that subject. This bill amends 14 sections, 14 of the sections in the chapter and article that address that, and it creates 5 new sections, but all contained within Chapter 17A and Article 6A of the West Virginia Code. It is essentially, its purpose is to modernize and update the regulations and statutes governing the relationship between automobile manufacturers and their franchise dealers. It addresses a number of things. It addresses the burden of proof required of manufacturer when it wants to terminate a dealership for cause, and makes it clear that the burden of proof is on a manufacturer. It provides that a manufacturer's consent to a transfer by a dealership of ownership of a dealership, the sale, manufacturer's consent when required under the Act cannot be unreasonably withheld. It addresses such things as retail rates charged by dealers, charged to dealers for parts. The bill addresses the interest rate and establishes the interest rate that is to be paid with respect to payments that are required that aren't made within 90 days in the relationship between, again, the manufacturer and the dealer. This bill does not address in any fashion the relationship between automobile dealers and the consumers. It governs the relationship between manufacturers and the dealers, just as we have similar statutes in other parts of the code that address the relationships between insurance companies and their agents. The bill provides that it has venue provisions in it. It relates to the burden of proof on reasonableness, on questions of reasonableness and conduct. It addresses who may, when, or how, if a manufacturer may own interests in a dealership. The bill talks about what happens when an automobile dealer dies and how franchise can be transferred or to an heir, or when a family member or an heir may continue to operate the franchise. It does in many ways modernize and bring up to current speed those relationships. As the members know, a few years ago there was a great move by some auto manufacturers in particular to close dealerships. So this article and chapter of the code governs how those things occur. Madam President, if I may, I'd like to take this opportunity to express gratitude to the subcommittee. We appointed a subcommittee in the Judiciary Committee to work on it, and the subcommittee included, I think, the senator from Wood County and the senator from Ohio County and the gentleman from Cabell, who's a sponsor of the bill. And so I would like to express my appreciation for their substantial work on this measure. I would be delighted to try to answer any questions from the membership. Absent that, I would urge passage of this bill.
Thank you. The question is on the passage of the bill. Is there discussion? The senator from Cabell.
Thank you, Madam President. I do rise in support of this committee substitute for Senate Bill 453. As our Judiciary Chair mentioned, this bill is not a consumer bill, but it does modernize for the 146 mainly family-owned car dealerships in our state. It modernizes their rights, their responsibilities, their duties vis-a-vis the distributors and manufacturers of motor vehicles. The committee substitute consists of 37 pages, which were the language in this committee substitute was agreed to by and between and among the stakeholders. That included communication back and forth between here and Korea, Japan, Sweden, Great Britain, the Free State of Detroit, And essentially, this is a global bill, literally and figuratively. So I'm excited to be the lead sponsor of this bill because it does, in light of the bankruptcy of General Motors, the closing of dealerships in our state, this modernizes our statutes and gives predictability to those that engage in the auto business. It ensures that there will be a presence in a dealership where a consumer can go and make sure that they have an advocate to the manufacturer on warranty issues and recall issues. So I commend the other members of the subcommittee, and especially Tom Smith, did a tremendous job of pulling all the stakeholders together, and I urge passage of the bill. Thank you.
The senator from Harrison.
Madam President, I rise in brief response to this bill. You know, I support the bill. I understand that this bill provides needed and necessary predictability for automobile dealers. And they have great investments. And we have great automobile dealers in this state. And they deserve to have predictability in their relationships with the more powerful auto manufacturers that supply their vehicles. I understand that desire. But you know, the free market's a funny thing. We all like the free market when it benefits us, and boy, when it doesn't benefit us, we take umbrage to it. It's kind of like government. Nobody wants government until it's their government. And then they fight like the Dickens to keep that government in place because it protects them. Free market's very similar. I just rise to remind this body that we have to embrace innovation, that we have to embrace entrepreneurs. And you know, we had an electric car company in here by the name of Tesla, and we got a little bit afraid of Tesla for some reason. They're innovators. They're bringing in a new wave, and when you stare innovation in the face and say you don't want it, you're stopping progress. You're going to fall behind because other people will embrace it, they'll watch it grow, and they'll get the advantages of it. Tesla manufactures an all-electric car with 300 miles plus on a single charge. 98% of it is manufactured and produced and assembled in the United States. No other car company can make that claim. We did a disservice by not considering their request, which would not have negatively affected this bill in any way, but would have embraced the American spirit that we all claim to hold so dear. I urge this body to consider that failure in our next session and to do something for this wonderful company and its founder and owner who does such amazing things for our entire world.
The senator from Marshall.
Thank you, Madam President. I just would like to read some words to the members of the body that I've said before on this floor, and I'll repeat them. I think they certainly stand worth repeating. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States other than according to the rules of the common law. Trial by jury. The Seventh Amendment, one I hold dear, one I know all of you hold dear. You may say, what's that got to do with an auto dealership bill? What's that got to do with the auto dealership bill? I'm about to tell you. I direct your attention to page 17 of the bill of West Virginia Code 17A-6A-101 subsection H. It's a section dealing with prohibited practices, meaning what the dealer or what the distributor or manufacturer, the Fords, the GMs, the big boys in Detroit, are prohibited from doing when they deal with a West Virginia car dealer. Let me tell you, and I'll tell you what that says. It says a manufacturer or distributor may not require any new motor vehicle dealer in this state to prospectively assent to a waiver of trial by jury. And goes on to say, or require any controversy between a new motor vehicle dealer and a manufacturer or distributor to be referred to a person other than the duly constituted courts of this state or of the United States District Courts of the Northern or Southern Districts of West Virginia. In sum, what that says, if there's a dispute between the big boys in Detroit and one of our 146 families in this state that own the dealerships here, and many of them are my friends, I've represented them. I've had to fight with GM to get dealership franchises transferred and to get approval to sell new product lines. It's tough. They are a tough bunch because they're almost contracts of adhesion because they got you where they want you, because they're the big boys. So, in this bill, what we've done is said for those 146 families in this state, no law can be passed and no contract can be presented between those dealers and those manufacturers that says you have to give up your right to a trial by jury in the courts of this state if you want to sell my car. You want to sell my Fords? You better sign this, that you got to go to arbitration rather than go before the people in those little white houses and the juries in our courthouses. That's illegal under this bill. And it will be. And it should be. But I remind you, ladies and gentlemen, this bill shouldn't be just about 146 people that have the right to the Seventh Amendment. 1.8 million people in this state should have that right. And I look around this room and I see a lot of this legislation coming through that we have passed and considered and had introduced that says we don't trust juries. We don't trust juries, but the privileged few absolutely are going to have a right to go to a jury. But those who might not have the ability to have contracts between GM and Ford and themselves will be, and many times by what we're doing on this floor, we are denying them that right. I remind you with the punitive damage bill, we capped what a jury could give. I think the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that 8 times compensatory damage is appropriate. We've said 4. We passed a bill that says 4. Juries may say it should be 6, 7, or 8. We said, nope, we don't trust you. It's got to be 4, not a penny more. It's not right. We've passed Senate Bill 37, an arbitration bill that was, frankly, a non-mandatory, and it's more of a permissive bill. But I remind you of the findings in that bill. The findings of that bill says it is hereby declared to be the public policy of the state of West Virginia and in the public interest to favor enforcement of arbitration agreements, including arbitration provisions contained in other contracts or agreements. We've said and found that contracts of arbitration's good in contracts, but in this bill we say, no, they are not. In fact, they're not only not good, they're illegal and forbidden. And they should be. We passed and had introduced a medical power of attorney bill, Senate Bill 493. And thank God died a slow, anguished death. But it would have permitted medical power of attorneys of incapacitated people. Incapacitated people, grandma on Alzheimer's, your aunts, your uncles, your mothers, your dads, those who are disabled. To let somebody, as a condition of being placed in that nursing home, the nursing home could insist, you want to come put grandma in our nursing home at Get Well Nursing Home? Before we're going to let grandma in or grandpap in, you've got to sign this little thing that says you give up your right to a trial by jury and go to arbitration. If we do something wrong, if there's a dispute in her care or his care, you're going to come back, you're going to be forced to arbitration, not to the trial by jury. That's wrong, and I'm glad that bill died. So I rise here today, not on the merits of the bill so much, but to remind the members of this jury, or of this body. Forgot where I was for a moment. To remind the members of this body that the Seventh Amendment just doesn't apply to a few, it applies to the 1.8. And every time we pass a bill under the caption of tort reform and take power and voices and the ability to hear disputes away from the people of this state and put it in some other process, We are treading on that. And I abide by and will, to the day I die, live up for support the first, second, third, fourth, all the amendments. But let's not forget the seventh. Now, the merits of this bill may stand and rise on its own, but I find it ironic and perhaps unsettling that on contracts between the big boys and the other big boys, that the Seventh Amendment is absolutely protected. So I'm going to keep this language in my desk for as long as I'm here. And every time there's a bill comes in that tramps on those rights of a trial by jury, I'm going to remind us, ladies and gentlemen, of Senate Bill 453, and I'm going to insert the exact same language as an amendment. And I hope you will join me and sponsor it by 33 others, because everybody in this state deserves to have their cases heard by a jury of their peers in their communities. Thank you, Madam President.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, no nays, 1 excused absent and not voting. More than the majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment? No.
Communicate the action and send it to the House. Flip it. Right there.
Okay. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
A round of applause for Senator Donna Boley, who I think for the first time got to preside over the Senate after being there for so many years. And now they'll take up, if they don't recess, they'll take up Senate Bill 541 relating to regulation and control of elections, about campaign finance reform. The House was supposed to go back into session at 12:30. They are a little late, but we are watching for the House to go back. In the meantime, we'll stay with the Senate and see how they handle Senate Bill 541 regarding campaign finance reform. Let's listen in.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 541 relating to regulation and control of elections.
The senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that further consideration of Senate Bill 385 be deferred, 541 be deferred to the foot of bills on first read.
Senator from Jackson requests unanimous consent that further consideration of the bill be deferred until the conclusion of bills on first reading. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 542, clarifying provisions of Consumer Credit and Protection Act relating to debt collection. Third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 542 amends 7 sections of the West Virginia Code and adds 1 new one, all within the Consumer Credit Protection Act, which is Chapter 46A, Article 2 of the West Virginia Code. And I want to say right at the outset as a result of the spirited defense by the gentleman from Marshall of the 7th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which I and many others in this body enjoyed hearing a moment ago. There isn't anything in this bill that deprives anybody of a jury trial or right to that or requires arbitration. In fact, one of the sections in the bill does address venue and addresses where actions under this chapter and article may be brought, but contemplates clearly in the courts of West Virginia, not arbitration or some other form. The bill, among the sections addressed in the bill are some changes within the statute which defines oppression and abuse. And this is really, this chapter and article that we're dealing with addresses relationships between debtors and creditors. And there's some redefinitions with respect to that. This bill regulates and clarifies telephone calling to consumers from debt collectors, from creditors, when it may occur, how often it may occur. Section 126 of the bill addresses and amends the provisions of law relating to unreasonable publication regarding an indebtedness, unpaid indebtedness. Makes it clear that nothing in the chapter will prohibit a creditor or debt collector from communicating with a person other than the consumer for the purpose of acquiring or confirming the location of the consumer, provided they do so in a manner consistent with 15 U.S.C. 1692b, which is the comparable federal act that regulates debt collection. Section 128 makes some changes in what constitutes fair or unconscionable conduct or means. Section 112 in Article 3 relates to delinquency charges on pre-computed consumer credit sales consumer loans, and it establishes a maximum late fee of $30 for late payments. Section 113 in Article 3 addresses delinquency charges on non-pre-computed consumer credit sales or consumer loans, and it also, in that section, again, sets a cap of $30 on late charges that can be imposed. In Article 5, which is the article of the Consumer Credit Protection Act that addresses penalties, civil liability, and criminal penalties. There are some rewrite of the language, but it provides a $1,000 civil penalty per violation for violations of the act, and provided that the aggregate amount of a penalty awarded cannot exceed the greater of $175,000 or the outstanding indebtedness. There are provisions throughout this section that make it clear that the limitations periods set forth in this section apply to all actions filed on or after September 1st, 2015. So, as members know, that's something we are always careful to try to do in the Judiciary Committee, and I think in this body as a whole. Tradition is when we have legislation that will change the law in some substantive or meaningful way, the precedent has long been, in my understanding, and we've continued it, to make clear to the extent possible that our actions are prospective only. You know, we're not changing the rules of a game in the middle of someone's lawsuit. So there's language throughout that section that addresses that. And again, the penalties are set forth in a couple different spots. There are, in Section 106 of Article 5, there's language that relates for adjustment for inflation. And the old law said that the provided for an adjustment of damages from September 1, 1974, which I guess was the date of a prior enactment of this section. So we've updated that to September 1, 2015. In Chapter 46A, Article 5, Section 107, the statute on venue, the new section, provides that a consumer may bring an action to recover damages or penalty in the action or upon a prohibited debt collection practice. And those can be brought either, consumer has choices for that, either in the circuit court of the county in which the plaintiff has his residence, or the circuit court of the county in which the plaintiff last resided, or in the circuit court of the county in which the debt collector or creditor has its principal place of business. So it does give consumer and plaintiff a choice of venues as delineated in Section 107, preserving, as the gentleman from Marshall County would want to do. I see the thumbs up. I'm happy for that, as we all want to do. The right of consumers in this act to have a jury trial. Mr. President, I would urge passage, be happy to answer questions, otherwise urge passage of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea, those opposed vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 582 relating to Herbert Henderson Office of Minority Affairs. Third reading of the bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 582 was originated by the Senate Judiciary Committee, and it was the idea was the genesis of the gentleman from the 8th here in Kanawha County. It amends 2 sections of the West Virginia Code and would enact 2 new sections. The amended sections relate to changes and the continuation of the Herbert Henderson Office of Minority Affairs. So this bill continues that office within the state government and allows its work to continue for the citizens of West Virginia. The bill establishes, the primary purpose of the bill is to establish a community-based pilot project, a pilot demonstration project to promote public health through community development. And if I could just take a moment and share with the members precisely what this is going to do, it requires the director to request that the commissioner of the Bureau of Public Health take a lead role in coordinating activities of state agencies, and it's relating to, Mr. President, a project that's going to be operated by the West Side Revive Comprehensive Community Development Initiative, which is a collaborative of local, nonprofit, locally based organizations here in Charleston. And the pilot project, which is to operate on the west side of Charleston, Mr. President, is designed to promote early childhood development, reduce childhood poverty, reduce childhood obesity, promote third-grade reading proficiency, promote science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and pre-vocational education, to reduce truancy and dropouts, to promote comprehensive education reform, to coordinate social services, to foster comprehensive youth and family development, to reduce the delinquency of children, to reduce incidents of child abuse and neglect, to promote health and wellness in that community, to reduce domestic violence, to develop a comprehensive plan to prevent and treat substance abuse. And we have, as all members know, significant substance abuse problems throughout West Virginia, but the sponsors of this bill and the gentleman from Kanawha have illuminated us on the degree to which it's a problem on the west side here in Kanawha County. It is a very severe problem there. The duties would include to provide job training and workforce development, to promote economic development, housing rehabilitation, weatherization, and construction, to promote adult and juvenile offender reentry into the community. And so, Mr. President, what this bill does is authorizes and enshrines in statute a collaborative effort to deal with these severe problems, significant problems here within the west side of Charleston among groups that are already active and involved in addressing some of them. I think it's an important measure. Certainly the local senators believe in its importance, and I would urge passage of this bill.
Questions on passage of the bill? Is there discussion? Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand to speak for this bill also, and maybe that's not necessary today. I think it does draw attention to the West Side, which has tremendous needs, a very rich history in our...
As the Senate is discussing the Herbert Henderson Office of Minority Affairs, the House has gone back into session. We just want to check in with them to see if they are dealing yet with House Bill 2688 or House Bill 2968. Let's listen in.
Could seek to sever off a small portion or a portion of the otherwise property tax exempt property and then conduct business as any other for-profit entity could on the part that's severed. And the amendment simply seeks to add that provided that the area of property to be severed shall be approved by the county commission wherein the property lies, so as to include in the severance all property substantially supporting the for-profit or business activity giving rise to the specific purpose of the severance, and excluding all property entitled to the continued benefits of the act. And the whole point is that if the owner decided to sever, say, a building and make it a taxable portion of property, that they're going to have to also get approval from the local county commission and include, according to the county commission, surrounding property that serves to specifically support the taxable business activity that takes place in that severed portion. So that is the point of the amendment. We are absolutely delighted to have the Boy Scouts in Fayette County, and they have built a wonderful facility. However, we have to look at this, that it's not just the Boy Scouts, because that's the only facility that meets the criteria right now, but it could be another facility in other parts of the state in the future, and so that's the way we're looking at it. I would urge passage of the amendment.
The gentleman from the 11th, Doug Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having met with the author of the amendment and met with the other parties.
The House is discussing House Bill 2968 to enact enabling legislation for the Nonprofit Youth Organization Tax Exemption Support Amendment, passed by the voters in November. The bill exempts tax certain properties owned by the Boy Scouts of America. That's what the House is discussing now. Let's listen in.
The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments?
Delegate Perry moves to amend the bill on page 17, line...
Gentleman from the 32nd, Delegate Perry, asks unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair is none. Gentleman may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, the voters last November approved an amendment to the state constitution allowing the Boy Scouts to use its tax-exempt property in Fayette County for other activities outside of its charitable purpose. It is the hope that the Boy Scouts facility in Fayette County can be used for other activities that will bring economic activity and growth to our area. The constitutional amendment, as approved by the legislature and approved by the voters, required that prior to the facility being used for a purpose outside of its nonprofit purpose, the legislature has to enact a law to protect local business. My amendment will require the County Commission of Fayette County every 5 years, beginning in 2020, to provide a report to the legislature on the impact of the use of the Boy Scout facility to local and regional businesses and on the revenues and benefits to county government. This is being done to assure that the operation of the facility is not otherwise causing harm to the local businesses, community, and governmental units. The amendment also requires that Marshall and West Virginia University economic research entities in 2020 also conduct a study to gauge the impact of this unique arrangement. It is my view that this will be a win-win for the Boy Scouts in Fayette County, but prudence requires that we monitor and verify that this is in fact the case. So if the legislature has to adjust the law to provide further protections or otherwise alter the law, it will have a mechanism to bring those issues to its attention. I urge adoption.
Gentleman from the 11th, Delegate Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I worked with the gentleman from Fayette with his amendment, also with the attorney from the Boy Scouts, and we feel that reporting is not bad and that we will support the gentleman's amendment.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the amendment? If not, the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. Those in favor will vote aye. Say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments?
Delegates Perry and Ashley move to amend the bill on page 9, line 141, following the words and...
The gentleman from the 11th, Delegate Ashley, asks unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the gentleman from Fayette, there's been ongoing conversation about the percentage of money taken as the Boy Scouts may lease out their properties. And in the bill currently, it says 4% net. The Boy Scouts of America went and met with some officials from Fayette County, and the Fayette County officials would like to have 1.25% gross. And so that's what our amendment does. And we urge passage of the amendment.
Are there further members desiring to speak to the adoption of the amendment? If not, the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? Not the bill be advanced to engrossment, third reading. Clerk, please read the bill third time.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2968.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 11th, Delegate Ashley, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the members have heard, there was a constitutional amendment that this legislature and put on the ballot last fall for the Boy Scouts of America to give them a different status from their tax exempt, so they could have opportunities to bring into Fayette County some events that have never been brought to West Virginia. That was passed overwhelmingly by over 60% of the voters statewide. And what this bill does is, as the legislation that created the constitutional amendment said last year, we would come back and outline what we do. And what this bill does is set in motion an agreement between the Boy Scouts of America and the officials from the county that the property is located in, and will be able to have promotions of opportunities of promotions of events that have never occurred in West Virginia. And the 1%, the fees will go out of the 1.25% that most amendment that we adopted. 25% will go to the State Tourism Fund, 25% to the county or counties where the property is located to be treated as payments in lieu of taxes, and 50% of the money will go to the sheriff of the county or counties where the property is located, and for that's in the same economic development authority. The money is used as a STEM program, science, technology, engineering, art, and math programs approved by the superintendent of the local school districts and done in conjunction with the nonprofit organizations. I urge passage of the bill.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? Not the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has each member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 97 ayes, 0 nays, 3 members absent and not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2968.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Nelson moves to amend the title.
Question before the House is the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the title amendment adopted. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Further bills.
House Bill 2645, expanding the availability of the Underwood Smith Teacher Loan Assistance Program.
Chair recognizes the lady from the 51st Delegate Pasden to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill increases from $2,000 to $3,000 the annual award available for the Underwood Smith Teacher Loan Assistance Program. It also expands the eligibility of teachers seeking an award from the program who are certified to teach in a subject area of critical need. I urge passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 97 ayes, 0 nays, 3 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
House Bill 2645.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Pasden moves to amend the title.
Question before the House is the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the title amendment adopted. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills.
House Bill 2664, creating Andrea and Willie's Law, increasing certain penalties for driving under the influence of alcohol, controlled substances, or drugs.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 2nd, Delegate Weld, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HB 2664, also known as Andrea and Willie's Law, relates to increasing penalties for driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs. Under current law, many of the penalties for DUIs are unequal in comparison to the severity of the crime. For instance, a person who drives under the influence and who violates a law, for example, speeding, and kills someone, that person is only subject to a misdemeanor crime and can only be punished for as little as 90 days. Under current law, the only penalty for a DUI with death is if 3 factors are present. And the first, the person is driving under the influence. Second, the person violates a law. And third, the person commits the act in reckless disregard for the safety of others. The overall effect of the strike and insert that we moved yesterday is to increase the penalties for many of the DUI crimes. And we went through that yesterday, and if many of you still have the reference sheet on your desk available to you. The strike and insert makes significant technical cleanup and organizes the statute to make it more readable. For instance, the current law, the initial elements of driving under the influence is repeated in each subsection of the statute. Rather than repeat each and every time, the strike and insert places those same elements as defined in the term impaired state. As you will see, the subsections now use the word impaired state instead of having to repeat over and over. The more substantive change in criminal position contained relates to the subsection relating to death. Under current laws we previously discussed, DUI resulting in death can be a felony or a misdemeanor depending on whether the driver acted in reckless disregard. The strike and insert now makes all DUI resulting in death a felony. It removes the additional violation of law and reckless disregard standards, but it does require that the death be proximately caused by the driver's impaired state. The strike and insert additionally creates a new felony provision for DUI resulting in serious bodily injury. The definition is consistent with that found in our general crime provisions in Chapter 61. And this new provision makes it a felony punishable by incarceration for not less than 2 nor more than 10 years and a fine of not less than $2,000 nor more than $15,000. With respect to the other penalties, again, you can reference the sheet that was placed on your desk yesterday. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
Gentleman from the 35th, Delegate McCuskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is the culmination, from my perspective, of what is almost a lifetime's amount of work for a constituent of mine, a woman named Jane Schuman. And her son Willie died in a drunk driving accident the day before he was set to attend the Air Force Academy. And Willie was the ball boy on my soccer team and the little brother of one of my best friends and the son of another set of my best friends. And I'm really proud to stand here today with this bill being voted on. I know that it's going to help Jane and Jim cope with the death of their son, because this is really what they did. They immersed themselves in the idea that they could help somebody else not drive drunk. And what they did is they started the Willie A. Schuman Foundation, which is the Wear a Seatbelt Foundation. So with that being said, I'd also like to thank Delegate Saboni and Delegate Butler, who helped write this bill with me, who both have similar stories, similar constituents in their districts, and they just stepped up to the plate, and we worked together really well to craft what I think is a really good piece of legislation. And on top of that, I'd like to thank Delegate Manchin for working with us in the Judiciary Committee. It wouldn't happen without you, buddy. I truly appreciate it. And Delegates Fluharty and Weld for all of their hard work, making sure that this bill was legally proper and would pass constitutional muster and would do all the things that all of us really want to do, which is reduce the amount of drunk driving and make sure that our people are safe on the roads. And so with all that being said, I'd like to thank all of you in advance for your support on this bill, and particularly those that I mentioned. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 14th, Delegate Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I was running to get elected to this body a few years ago, I was introduced to a young lady, Deanna Spalding, and she told me the story of her daughter who had recently been killed by a drunk driver who had 9 previous convictions. Now, I tend to not do a whole lot on emotion, but as I looked at our code and started studying and seeing what the penalties were, I realized that the penalties for littering in some cases were worse than the penalties for DUI driving. And in too many cases, as is evidence here where this gentleman was still driving after 9 previous convictions, it was clear that we needed to change our laws and make a statement to people in West Virginia that we're not going to put up with this. This morning when I knew this bill was coming onto the floor, I just looked back at an old news story where Paul Sheets, who was a gentleman who was driving the car when Andrea was killed, and Paul is here somewhere, I think, and so is Dina, who is Andrea's mom. And Paul says, I remember everything. We'd been to the movies. We went to McDonald's. I just remember the girls saying it was the best night of their lives. Coming away from it and seeing pictures of the wreck, I don't see how we survived. I just remember going up Route 2, the girls were talking on the phone. I told them to call Sammy's mom. Sammy was another young girl, 12 years old, who was in the car, who fortunately was not killed. So Sammy was on the phone with her mom, and we were about 10 minutes late. They were concerned that the mom was going to be worried about him. And he says, I didn't want to worry the mom. However, being late was nothing compared to what we heard on the floor at the end of the line. Sammy, actually on the phone with her mom when the accident happened. After the accident, I just remember her hollering in the background, "What happened? What happened?" When I got my breath back and was able to talk to her, I just told her we were in an accident, she said. Can you imagine coming back from a movie in McDonald's with your kids and a car swerving into your lane and hitting you head on? And the tragedy that has followed. I'm friends with Dina Spalding on Facebook, and I see her around the community quite often. This has devastated her life. And I think this is what this bill is about. She realizes that she's not going to get her daughter back from this. But what we need to do is make a statement and make sure that the penalties are stiff enough to get people's attention so that this does not continue to happen to other families in our state. Since I've done this legislation, it seems every month or two, somewhere in my area, this happens. And again, I would appreciate everyone's support. And make sure that when someone's driving into West Virginia, or when they're going to the bar, maybe they think, well, I better not have that drink, because if I do, the penalty is going to be severe. Because the penalty was certainly severe for this young lady, and it continues to be severe for her family. I appreciate your support on this. Thank you.
Lady from the 18th, Delegate Sabonia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to be brief. Just wanted to draw your attention, ladies and gentlemen, to an article that we put on your desks. It was from the Herald-Dispatch. It was dated November 22nd, 2011, and it shows the driver of the car that hit Andrea and killed her. And I'll just let you know that he had arrests related to drinking 1986, 89, 92, 93, 94, 2001, 2002, 2004, 2005, 2006 twice, 2007, 2010 twice. And he was issued a warrant for his arrest for missing a court date by a Cabell County magistrate, and that's when the accident took place. My son was in college when he was hit by a drunk driver. It caused injury, it totaled his truck, and we could have lost him that day. The driver was a repeat offender. He tried to flee the scene of an accident, and it was a soldier who was back from home from being overseas had stopped that drunk driver's vehicle and kept him from getting onto the interstate so he couldn't maybe hit somebody else and kill someone else. And quite frankly, I wouldn't have my 2 grandsons if my son had to experience what poor Andrea had lost her life. This happens to many families across our state, and I just hope that this bill will make people more mindful that if you want to get behind the wheel and you can't drive, get a designated driver. Just don't get behind the wheel. But we hope that this can save at least, if just one life, it's worth it. I urge passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to passage of the bill? Does the gentleman from the second wish to close? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 97 ayes, 0 nays, 3 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk reports the title.
House Bill 2664.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, titles read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2796, providing paid leave for certain state officers and employees during a declared state of emergency.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 27th delegate, Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Committee substitute for House Bill 2796 creates a procedure to allow state employees to obtain leave from their employment to provide disaster relief or emergency services during a state of emergency. Specifically, a state employee may be granted leave under this section if the state employee obtains the following. First, a designation as an essential member by an officer or agent of an emergency aid provider that has authority to act on its behalf. And second, approval from the state employee's immediate supervisor. Once the state employee meets these requirements, he or she may be granted leave from state employment for no more than 15 work days in a year to provide disaster relief or emergency services in areas of this state. If leave is granted, the state employee will not incur loss of pay or annual leave or sick leave or earned overtime compensation or seniority or compensatory time. Further, the state employee will be compensated at his or her regular rate of pay for those regular work hours that they are absent while volunteering for emergency services. The bill provides that no person may be designated as an essential member of an emergency aid provider under this section if that person is employed by an emergency aid provider that is located in or that customarily serves an area included within the state of emergency. The bill further requires that each supervisor granting leave under this section shall issue a report to the governor identifying the name of the employee and the total cost, if any, of the temporary replacement of that state employee. The governor shall keep a record of the total cost of leave granted under this section for all state agencies, and that cost shall not exceed $300,000 in a year unless leave is granted to exceed that amount and it is repaid from the Civil Contingent Fund. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question for the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Yes, every member voted. If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 97 ayes, 0 nays, 3 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2796.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills.
House Bill 2892, authorizing certain legislative rules regarding higher education.
The chair recognizes the lady from the 51st Delegate Pasden to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill authorizes a legislative rule regarding capital project management for the Higher Education Policy Commission and the Community and Technical College System. These rules provide for a state-level facilities plan for each system and for establishing priorities for capital projects in a manner consistent with statutory goals for higher education. The bill authorizes 2 additional rules for the Policy Commission, including the Underwood-Smith Teacher Scholarship Program, which establishes guidelines and procedures for operating the program, and the Nursing Scholarship Program, which provides for the Policy Commission's new management role over the program. Each rule has been approved by the Legislative Oversight Commission on Education Accountability and recommended for passage by the legislature. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question for the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has each member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 97 ayes, 0 nays, 3 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
House Bill 2892.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House. Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the bill take effect from its passage.
The gentleman from the 58th moves the bill take effect from passage. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has each member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, 97 ayes, 0 nays, 3 members absent not voting. 2/3 of the members elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Further bills.
Committee Delegate McGean moves pursuant to the West Virginia Constitution, Article 6, Section 29, that House Bill 2688 be read fully and distinctly in its entirety on third reading.
Clerk will read the bill in its entirety.
House Bill 2688, a bill to amend and reenact the Code of West Virginia as amended and to amend said code by adding thereto a new section designated 22C97A, all relating to oil and gas conservation, reconstituting the membership of the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, providing for the unitization of interest in drilling units in connection with horizontal...
At issue is House Bill 2688, providing for the unitization of interest in drilling units in connection with all horizontal oil or gas wells. Delegate McGean has asked that the bill be read in its entirety. This is done usually as a stalling tactic or some kind of protest when a bill is asked to be read in its entirety. It's my understanding that this bill is 40-some pages long, so House Reading Clerk Joe Cavall has his work cut out for him. This has to do with forced pooling in terms of horizontal oil and gas wells. So we'll listen in. An interesting development here is that we get to hear this bill read in its entirety. This is a constitutional right of any member of the legislature to ask for the bill to be read in its entirety. So let's listen to how it sounds.
Legislative findings. It is hereby declared to be the public policy of this state and in the public interest to foster, encourage, and promote exploration for and development, production, utilization, and conservation of oil and gas resources. Committee substitute for House Bill 2688, prohibits waste of oil and gas resources and unnecessary surface loss of oil and gas in their constituents, encourage the maximum recovery of oil and gas, and safeguard, protect, and enforce the correlative rights of operators and royalty owners in a pool of oil or gas to the end that each such operator and royalty owner may obtain his or her just and equitable share of production from that pool, unit, or unconventional reservoir of oil or gas. The legislature hereby determines and finds that oil and natural gas found in West Virginia in shallow sands or strata have been produced continuously for more than 100 years, that oil and gas deposits in such shallow sands or strata have geological and other characteristics different than those found in deeper formations, and that in order to encourage the maximum recovery of oil and gas from all productive formations in this state, it is not in the public interest, with the exception of shallow wells utilized in the secondary recovery program and oil and gas produced from horizontal wells, to enact statutory provisions relating to the exploration for or production from oil and gas from vertical shallow wells. But that it is in the public interest to enact statutory provisions establishing regulatory procedures and principles to be applied to the exploration for or production of oil and from gas deep wells as defined in Section 2. As used in this article, Commission means the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, and Commissioner means the Oil and Gas Conservation Commissioner as provided for in Section 4 of this article. Director means the Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection, and Chief means the Chief of the Office of Oil and Gas. Person means any natural person, corporation, limited liability company, partnership, receiver, trustee, executor, administrator, guardian, fiduciary, or other representative of any kind, and includes any government or any political subdivision or any agency thereof. Operator means any owner of the right to develop, operate, and produce oil and gas from a pool and to appropriate the oil and gas produced therefrom, either for that person or for that person and others, in the event that there is no oil and gas lease in existence with respect to the tract in question. The owner of the oil and gas rights therein is the operator to the extent of 7/8 of the oil and gas in that portion of the pool underlying the tract owned by the owner, and as royalty owner as to 1/8 interest in the oil and gas, and in the event the oil is owned separately from the gas, the owner of the substance being produced or sought to be produced from the pool or unit is the operator, or that pool or acreage included in a unit. The term operator includes owners of working interest in a lease, but does not include owners whose interest is limited to working interest in a wellbore only, overriding royalties or net profits interests. Royalty owner means any owner of oil and gas in place or oil and gas rights to the extent that the owner is not an operator as defined in subdivision 4 of this section. Independent producer means a producer of crude oil or natural gas whose allowance for depletion is determined under Section 613A of the Federal Internal Revenue Code in effect on July 1, 1997. Oil means natural crude oil or petroleum and other hydrocarbons, regardless of gravity, which are produced at the well in liquid form by ordinary production methods and which are not the result of the condensation of gas after it leaves the underground reservoir. Gas means all natural gas and all other fluid hydrocarbons not defined as oil in subdivision 7 of this section. Pool means an underground accumulation of petroleum or gas in a single and separate reservoir, ordinarily a porous sandstone or limestone. It is characterized by a single natural pressure system so that production of petroleum or gas from one part of the pool affects the reservoir pressure throughout its extent. A pool is bounded by geologic barriers in all directions, such as geologic structural conditions, impermeable strata, and water in the formations, so that it is effectively separated from any other pools that may be presented in the same district or on the same geologic structure. Well means any shaft or hole sunk, drilled, bored, or dug into the earth, or underground strata for the extraction of oil or gas. Shallow well means any well other than a coal bed methane well, drilled no deeper than 100 feet below the top of the Onondaga group, provided that in no event may the Onondaga group formation or any formation below the Onondaga group be produced, perforated, or stimulated in any manner. Deep well means any well other than a shallow well or a coal bed methane well drilled to a formation below the top of the uppermost member of the Onondaga group. Drilling unit or unit means the acreage on which one well or more wells may be drilled. Waste means and includes physical waste, as that term is generally understood in the oil and gas industry, the locating, drilling, equipping, operating, or producing of any oil or gas well in a manner that causes or tends to cause a reduction in the quantity of oil or gas ultimately recoverable from a pool under prudent and proper operations, or that causes or tends to cause unnecessary or excessive surface loss of oil or gas, or the drilling of more horizontal wells or deep wells than are reasonably required to recover efficiently and economically the maximum amount of oil and gas from a pole unit or an unconventional reservoir. Waste does not include gas vented or released from any mine areas as defined in Section 2, Article 1, Chapter 22A of this code, or from adjacent coal seams which are the subject of a current permit issued under Article 2 of Chapter 22 of this code, provided that this exclusion does not address ownership of the gas. Correlative rights means the reasonable opportunity of each person entitled thereto to recover and receive without waste the oil and gas in and under his or her tract or tracts or the equivalent thereof. And just and equitable share of production means, as to each person, an amount of oil or gas, or both substantially equal to the amount of recoverable oil or gas in that part of a pole unit or unconventional reservoir underlying the person's tract or tracts within a unit. Unconventional reservoir means any geologic formation that contains or is otherwise productive of oil or natural gas that generally cannot be produced or economic flow rates or in economic volumes except by wells stimulated by multiple hydraulic fracture treatments, a horizontal well bore, or by using multilateral well bores or other technique to expose more of the formation to the well bore. Horizontal drilling means the method of drilling a well for the production of oil and gas that is intended to maximize the length of well bore that is exposed to the formation in which the well bore is initially vertical but is eventually curved to become horizontal or nearly horizontal to parallel a particular geologic formation. And horizontal well means an oil and gas well other than a coal bed methane well where the well bore is initially drilled using a horizontal drilling method. A horizontal well may include multiple horizontal side laterals drilled into the same formation. A horizontal well may have completions into multiple formations from the same well. Multiple horizontal wells may be drilled from the same well pad. Unless the context clearly indicates otherwise, the use of the word and the word or are interchangeable, as, for example, oil and gas means oil or gas or both. A person with an interest in oil and gas in the unit formed under this article who does not consent to the unit shall have no liability in connection with well site preparation, drilling, completion, maintenance, reclamation, plugging, and other operations with respect to wells drilled in the unit. Application of article exclusions. Except as noted in subsection B of this section, the provisions of this article shall apply to all lands located in the state, however owned, including any lands owned or administered by any government or any agency or subdivision thereof over which the state has jurisdiction under its police power. The provisions of this article are in addition to and not in degradation of the substitution for the provisions of Article 6, Chapter 22 of this code. This article shall not apply to or affect shallow wells other than shallow horizontal wells and those utilized in secondary recovery programs set forth in Section 8 of this article. Any well commenced or completed prior to March 9, 1972, unless the well after completion, the completion is prior or subsequent to that date, deepened or drilled laterally subsequent to that date to a formation at or below the top of the uppermost member of the Onondaga group, or involved in secondary recovery operations for oil under an order of the commission entered pursuant to Section 8 of this article, or drilled laterally as a horizontal well at any depth. Gas storage operations, or any well employed to inject gas into or withdraw gas from a gas storage reservoir, or any well employed for storage observation, or free gas rights or coal bed methane wells. The provisions of this article shall not be construed to grant to the Commissioner or the Commission authority or power to limit production or output or prorate production of any oil or gas well, except as provided in subdivision 6, subsection A, section 7 of this article, or fixed prices of oil or gas. Nothing contained in either this chapter or Chapter 22 of this code may be construed so as to require, prior to commencement of plugging operations, a lessee under a lease covering a well to give or sell the well to any person owning an interest in the well, including but not limited to a retrospective lessor or agent of the lessor, nor shall the lessee be required to grant to a person owning an interest in the well, including but not limited to a respective lessor or agent of a lessor, an opportunity to qualify under Section 26, Article 6, Chapter 22 of this code to continue operation of the well. Oil and Gas Conservation Commissioner and Commission membership, qualifications of members, terms of members, vacancies on commission, meetings, compensation and expenses, appointment and qualifications of commissioner, general powers and duties. The Oil and Gas Conservation Commission is composed of 7 members. The Director of the Division of Environmental Protection and the Chief of the Office of Oil and Gas and the State Geologist are members of the Commission ex officio. The remaining 4 members of the Commission shall be appointed by the Governor by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, and may not be employees of the Division of Environmental Protection. Each of the 4 members appointed by the Governor shall be a resident of this state. Of the 4 members appointed by the Governor, the first shall be an independent producer, and at least one shall be a public member not engaged in an activity under the jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission or the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. The second appointee shall be an individual who has significant experience in the agricultural industry and who is engaged in the business of farming in this state. When this member is to be appointed, the Governor shall request from the primary organization representing the agriculture and forestry industries in this state a list of 3 nominees for the member to be appointed. The third appointee shall be an owner of minerals in this state who is not affiliated with an operator of gas or oil wells. When this member is to be appointed, the Governor shall request from the major trade association representing mineral royalty owners in this state a list of 3 nominees for the member to be appointed. The fourth appointee shall possess a degree from an accredited college or university in petroleum engineering or geology, and must be a registered professional engineer with particular knowledge and experience in the oil and gas industry, and shall serve as commissioner as chair of the commission. The term affiliated, as used in the immediately preceding sentence in this subsection, means someone who is directly or indirectly through one or more intermediaries controls or is controlled by or is under common control with an operator of oil and gas wells by virtue of the power to direct or cause the direction of the management and policies of that operator, whether through the ownership of voting shares by contract or otherwise. The members of the Commission appointed by the Governor shall be appointed for overlapping terms of 6 years, each except that the original appointment shall be for terms of 2, 4, and 6 years, respectively. Each member appointed by the Governor shall serve until the member's successor has been appointed and qualified. Members may be appointed by the Governor to serve any number of terms, and members of the Commission appointed by the Governor before...
Once again, you're listening to House Bill 2688 being read in its entirety by House Reading Clerk Joe Koval. This was at the request of Delegate Pat McGeehan of Hancock County. It has to do with forced pooling. And Delegate McGeehan asked that the bill be read in its entirety. It's a stalling tactic used to protest a bill or an action to the bill. You see that a lot of people are milling around. Delegate Armstead has put Delegate Bill Anderson in the podium, and people are kind of milling around while this 41-page bill is being read in its entirety. However, it's my understanding that Delegate McGeehan must stay in his seat and listen to the bill being read. If he leaves his seat, then they can stop reading the bill in its entirety. We don't see a shot of that. Delegate McGeehan's seat is at the very back of the chamber. But he is supposed to sit there and listen to the bill being read in its entirety. Our time with you will end at 2 o'clock. That's probably about the time that Joe Koval will be done reading this bill in its entirety. But for now, it's interesting to listen to him do it. It's a very big task to read a bill in its entirety, and Joe seems to have it handled pretty well. So let's go back to the House of Delegates.
This article, the Commission has jurisdiction and authority over all person and property necessary therefore. The Commission is authorized to make such investigation of record facilities as the Commission deems proper. In the event of a conflict between duty to prevent waste and duty to protect correlative rights, the Commission's duty to prevent waste is paramount. Without limiting the Commission's general authority, the Commission will have specific authority to regulate the space of deep wells, issue horizontal well units, make and enforce reasonable rules and orders reasonably necessary to prevent waste, protect correlative rights, govern the practice and procedure before the Commission, otherwise administer the provisions of this article. Issues subpoenas for the attendance of witnesses and subpoenas dulce tecum for the production of any books, records, maps, charts, diagrams, and other pertinent documents, administer oaths of affirmation to the witnesses, whenever in the judgment of the Commission is necessary to do so for the effective discharge of the Commission's duties under the provisions of this article. Serve as a technical advisor regarding oil and gas to the legislature, its members and committees, to the Chief Office of Oil and Gas, to the Division of Environmental Protection, and any other agency of state government having responsibility related to the oil and gas industry. The Commission may delegate to the Commission staff the authority to approve or deny an application for new well permits, to establish drilling units or special field rules. If the application conforms to the rules of the Commission and no request for hearing has been received, the Commission may not delegate its authority to propose legislative rules, approve or deny an application for new well permits, to establish drilling units or special field rules if the conditions set forth in subsection G of this section are not met, or approve or deny an application for the pooling of interest within a drilling unit. Any exception to the field rules or the spacing of wells which does not conform to the rules of the Commission, and any application for the pooling of interest within a drilling unit must be presented to and heard before the Commission. Rules and notice requirements.
Robert's going to take it on.
And they're giving Joe Koval a break to let another member of the staff of the House Clerk's office start reading this long bill. You also saw in his seat Delegate Patrick McGeehan, who has to sit and listen as the bill is read in its entirety. Back to the House.
Must be presented to and heard before the Commission. 22C95 Rules, Notice Requirements. A, the Commission may propose rules for legislative approval in accordance with the provision of Article 3, Chapter 29A of this Code to implement and make effective the provision of this article and the powers and authority conferred and the duties imposed upon the Commission under the provision of this article. B, notwithstanding the provision of Section 2, Article 7, Chapter 29A of this Code, any notice required in the provision of this article shall be given at the direction of the Commission by personal or substitute service or by certified United States mail. Address post is prepaid to the last known mailing address, if any, of the person being served, with the direction that the same be delivered to addressee only. Return receipt request. In the case of providing notice upon the filing of an application with the Commission shall, within 14 days of the filing of an application, submit for publication notice of the application to be published as a Class 2 legal advertisement in compliance with the provisions of Article 3, Chapter 59 of this Code, and the publication area for such publication shall be county or counties wherein any land which may be affected by the order is situate. In addition, the Commission shall mail a copy of the notice to all persons who have specified to the Commission an address to which all such notices may be mailed. The notice shall issue in the name of the state, shall be signed by one of the Commission members, shall specify the style and number of the proceeding, the time and place of any hearing, and shall briefly state the purpose of the proceeding. Each notice of a hearing must be provided no fewer than 20 days preceding the hearing date. Personal or substitute service and proof thereof may be made by an officer authorized to serve process or by an agent of the Commission in the same manner as is now provided by the West Virginia Rules of Civil Procedure for trial courts of record for service, process, and civil actions in various courts of this state. A certified copy of any pooling unit order entered under the provision of this article shall be presented by the Commission to the Clerk of the County Commission of each county wherein all or any portion of the pooled or unit tract is located, for recordation in the record book of the county in which oil and gas leases are normally recorded. The recording of the order from the time noted thereon by the clerk shall be notice of the order to all persons. 22C97A, unitization of interest in horizontal well drilling units. A, declaration of public policy, legislative finding regarding utilization of all horizontal wells. The legislature finds that horizontal drilling is a technique that effectively and efficiently recovers natural resources and shall be encouraged as a means of production of oil and gas, and is hereby declared to the public policy of this state and in the public interest too. 1. Foster, encourage, and promote exploration for and development, production, utilization, conservation of oil and gas resources by horizontal drilling in deep and shallow formations. 2. Prohibit waste of oil and gas resources and unnecessary surface loss of oil and gas and their constituents. 3. Encourage the maximum recovery of oil and gas. And 4. Safeguard, protect, and enforce correlative rights of operators and royalty owners of oil and gas in a horizontal well unit to the end that each such operator and royalty owner may obtain his or her just and equitable share of production from that pool, horizontal well unit, or unconventional reservoir of oil or gas. B. Definitions. Unless context in which the use clearly requires a different meaning as used in this section. 1. Bonded operator means a person that has posted a bond under Article 6 or 6A, Chapter 22 of this code, is registered as an oil and gas well operator with the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, Office of Oil and Gas, and operates 8 or more oil and gas wells, as defined in Article 6 and 6A of Chapter 22 of this code in West Virginia that are active producing oil and gas wells. 2. Executive interest and executory interest means the interest entitling the owner to lease the oil and gas estate or amend an existing oil and gas lease. For purpose of this section, the owner of the executive interest is considered to be royalty owner and interest party for purpose of notice and participation proceedings here in this article. And all horizontal well unit orders are binding on the owners of executive interest and non-executive interest in a horizontal well unit. The owner of the executive interest and the associate non-executive interest owners are considered to be the same interest for purpose of computing percentages pursuant to subparagraph A, subdivision 2, subsection C of this section. 3. Horizontal well unit means an area in which horizontal drilling may occur and that is designated for all the allocation production from one or more horizontal wells drilled in the unit to all oil and gas tracts or portions of the tracts, included in the unit for production of oil and gas and payment of royalty and proceeds of production regardless of the tract or tracts in which the horizontal wells drilled or completed, and the corresponding authorization to drill and produce oil and gas from that area as a unit, notwithstanding the lack of adequate consensual rights allowing pooling or utilization of oil and gas or allowing drilling horizontally across tract lines. When a horizontal well unit is formed, that portion of the production allocated to each tract or portion of the unit included in the horizontal well unit shall, when produced, be considered for all purposes to have been actually produced from the tract by an oil and gas well drilled, completed, and producing on the tract. 4. Lateral means the portion of a well bore that deviates from approximate vertical orientation to approximate horizontal orientation in well and all well bore beyond the initial deviation to the depth of terminus of the well bore. 5. Overriding loyalty means an interest carved out of the leasehold or out of the working interest and is not included within the meaning of royalty. 6. Royalty owner means any owner of oil and gas in place or interest derived from the oil and gas in place. Royalty is not carved out of a leasehold interest. For example, if a fee owner of oil and lease the property for oil and gas production conveys to another the right to receive one half of the oil and gas when produced, both parties are royalty owners. 7. Target formation means the primary geologic formation for which oil or gas is intended to be produced from a horizontal drilling operation where completions can reasonably be expected to produce from formations above or below the target information includes formation from which production can reasonably be expected. 8. Utilization means a combination of 2 or more tracts of oil and gas or portions thereof releases from drilling horizontal wells and production of oil and gas from the unit with an allocation of production to the net acreage of each tract included in the unit to operate as a consolidated horizontal well unit. 9. Utilization consideration means consideration provided as set forth in subsection F of this section. Utilization consideration relates to the net acreage of the non-consenting royalty owner included in a horizontal well unit and is determined to be just and reasonably by the Commission. And 10. Unknown and unlocatable interest owner means a royalty owner, operator, or other person invested with an interest in oil and gas and the target formation to be included in a horizontal well unit whose present identity or location cannot be determined from A reasonable review of the records of the clerk of the county commission for the county or counties where oil and gas is located. B. Diligently inquiry to known interest owners in the same tract. C. Inquiry to the sheriff's and assessor's office of the county or counties in which the oil and gas interest is located. D. A reasonable inquiry utilizing available inner resources that could reasonably lead to the identification of the person. And E. A mailing to the last known address, if available, of the persons reflected in the records of the sheriff's or assessor's office and includes the unknown heirs, representatives, successors, and assigns of the persons. C. Applicability. 1. For all horizontal wells, including shallow and deep horizontal wells, the Commission may utilize tracts or portions of tracts in a horizontal well unit established under this section upon the filing of an application with the Commission by a person that controls a horizontal well unit upon the issuance of a horizontal well unit order pursuant to this section. 2. Before filing an application for this section, the applicant must have A. With respect to the royalty interest obtained by ownership, lease amendment, assignment, format, contract, or agreement, the right, consent, or agreement to pool or utilize the acreage to be included in the horizontal well unit from exerting interest or royalty owners of 80% or more of the net acreage proposed to be included in the horizontal well unit as provided and determined in subdivision 3 of this subsection. And B. With respect to the operator interest obtained by ownership, lease amendment, assignment, farm out, contract, or other agreement, the right, consent, or agreement to pool or utilize as to 80% or more of the net acreage proposed to be included in the horizontal well unit owned, leased, or operated by bonded operators and the applicant, collectively by ownership, lease, farm out, assignment, contract, or other agreement. And C. I. Made good faith offers to consent or agree to utilization to and is negotiated in good faith with all known and locatable royalty owners having executor interest in the oil and gas in the target formation within the acreage to be included in the proposed horizontal well unit who have not previously consented or agreed to the pooling or utilization of the interest, and 2, made good faith offers to participate or consent or agree to the proposed horizontal well unit 2, and has negotiated in good faith with all known and locatable operators who have not previously agreed to participate or consent or agree to pooling utilization of the acreage to be included in proposed horizontal well unit. A person who satisfies the conditions of subparagraphs A through C of this subdivision is referred to in this section as a person that controls a horizontal well unit. 3, for purposes of determining whether a person has obtained the requisite control of the proposed horizontal well unit, the Commission may not include overriding royalty owners, non-executive interest royalties owners, or acreage owned or otherwise held by unknown and unlocatable interest owners, or acreage owned and otherwise held by operators who are not bonded operators. Furthermore, for purposes of determining whether a person has requisite control of the proposed horizontal well unit, the identity and rights of royalty owners and bonded operators shall be determined as the date on which the application for a horizontal well unit is filed. 4, if the applicant has not met all provisions of this subsection, the applicant shall be dismissed without prejudice. 5, if the applicant meets all the provisions of this subsection, the Commission shall authorize unitization of tracts or portion of tracts as to all interest in oil and gas and target formation acreage proposed to be unitized for horizontal drilling, including interest of unknown and unlocatable interest owners for production of oil and gas from the target formation as a horizontal well unit, and shall issue a horizontal well unit order in accordance with this section. D, applicable requirements. 1, an applicant who is a person that controls a horizontal well unit proposed for a horizontal well unit order and has drilled or plans to drill one or more horizontal wells in the proposed horizontal well unit may file an application with the Commission for a horizontal well unit order. The application shall contain A, a description of the proposed horizontal well unit and identification of the target formation or formations. B, statement of the nature of the operation contemplated. C, a plat that depicts the boundaries and acreage of the proposed horizontal well unit, the tracts in the horizontal well unit, the surface tax map, and parcel numbers of the tracts to be included in the horizontal well unit in accordance with county assessor records and the district and county or counties where the proposed horizontal well unit is located. The plat shall show the surface location of the vertical borehole of the horizontal wells to be included in the proposed horizontal well unit determined by survey, the course and distance of the surface location from 2 permanent points or landmarks on those tracts, the deviation from vertical, and also the proposed horizontal lateral portion of each proposed horizontal well to be included in the proposed horizontal well unit. The plat shall show the proposed horizontal well unit name, the proposed horizontal well names, if known, and the well number of each horizontal well to be drilled in the horizontal well unit. The plat shall also show the location of each permanent active oil and gas well located in the horizontal well unit and name of the operator of the well as shown by the records of the Department of Environmental Protection Office of Oil and Gas, provided that the applicants are not required to depict or identify any abandoned or plugged well. D, a listing of all oil and gas tracts or portions thereof within the proposed horizontal well unit, the size of each tract, and the extent to which each tract is leased. E, the names and last known address of royalty owners of the target information of each tract within the proposed horizontal well unit, specifying I, which, if any of them are unknown and unlocatable. 2, which of them hold executive rights. And 3, with respect to owners of an executive interest, whether they have consented to pooling or utilization of the acreage proposed to be included in the horizontal well units. F, the names, last known address of operators proposed horizontal well unit, target information acreage whose interest of record in the county where the property is located, specifying I, which, if any of them are unknown and located, by which, if any, are bonded operations of a bonded operator with their C or C consented to pooling or utilization of acreage proposed to be included in the horizontal well unit. G, information regarding the applicant's actions to identify and locate unknown and unlocatable interest owners of target formation acreage to be included in the horizontal well unit. H, the percentage of the net acreage in the proposed horizontal well unit owned by executory interest target formation royalty owners who have consented to pooling or unitization. I, the percentage of the net acreage in the proposed horizontal well unit held by bonded operators and the applicant collected as to which consent or agreement to pooling or utilization has been granted. J, a percentage allocation to the separately owned tracts or portions thereof in the proposed horizontal well unit of the oil and gas that will be produced from the horizontal well unit as determined by the proportion that each tract's net acreage within the horizontal well unit bears to the total net acreage in the horizontal well unit. K, certification the applicant meets the requirements subsection C of this section with respect to proposed horizontal well unit. A list of instruments granting control and certification. The applicant has mailed a copy of the application to all known and locatable interest parties by United States certified mail. Return receipt requested to their last known address and to the most current address filed with the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, Office of Oil and Gas, if any, and L. A statement where the applicant has submitted either previously or contemporaneously with the application filed pursuant to this section, application for a well work permit with the Department of Environmental Protection for one or more horizontal wells to be completed within the boundaries of the proposed horizontal well unit. 2, upon the filing of application for a horizontal well unit order, the Commission shall provide notice of a hearing to all interested parties as defined in this section in accordance with Section 5 of this article and subsection C of this section. E, standard of review. 1, the Commission shall evaluate the application, so consider A, the ownership and control of the tracts and portion of the tracts in proposed horizontal well unit. B, whether the tracts or portion of the tracts proposed to be made subject to horizontal well unit are owned in whole or in part by unknown or unlocatable interest owners. C, information regarding the applicant's actions to locate unknown and unlocatable interest owners for the tracts or portion of the tracts sought to be included in the horizontal well unit. D, the percentage of executory interest royal owner target and formation acreage to be included in the horizontal well unit as to which consent or agreement for pooling utilization has been granted. E, the percentage of proposed horizontal well unit target formation acreage held collectively by the applicant and bonded operators who have consented or agreed to the unit in accordance with subsection C of this section. F, whether the applicant is a person that controls horizontal well unit proposed for unitization. G, the area to be drained by wells completed or two completed in the horizontal well unit. H, correlative rights. I, the executive to which the application will prevent was. J, whether the applicant has complied with subsection of this section. And K, whether notice has been provided in accordance with this section. 2, the Commission may not issue a horizontal well unit order pursuant to this section unless it finds that the applicant has, before the filing of the application, met requirements subsection C of this section. 3, the Commission may not change the operator of an existing well drilled in a proposed horizontal well unit or a well actually being drilled within the proposed horizontal well unit as of the day the application is filed under this section, and shall consider and protect the interests of owners of the well when issuing a horizontal well unit order. F, horizontal well unit orders. 1, a horizontal well unit order under this section shall specify A, the size and boundaries of the horizontal unit well, giving due regard for maximization of the amount of oil and gas produced to prevent waste and protect correlative rights, provided that a horizontal well unit size may not exceed 640 acres, provided, however, that the Commission may exceed the acres limitation by 10%, the applicant 10%, the proposed horizontal well unit would be drained efficiently and economically by a large horizontal well unit. B, the horizontal wells which may be drilled in the horizontal well unit, and whether the horizontal wells to be drilled are shallow or deep. C, if there are vertical wells completed in the target formation of the horizontal well unit area where a horizontal well may not be completed. D, the target formation to which the horizontal well unit applies. And E, any utilization consideration due. 2, an order authorizing utilization of tracts with unknown or unlocatable interest owners shall contain a finding that identifies a person as unknown or unlocatable. 3, an order shall specify that the allocation of the percentage of production of the horizontal well drilled in the horizontal well unit to be separately owned tracts or portions of the tracts included within the horizontal well unit shall be in proportion with each tract's net acreage within the horizontal well unit bears to the total net acreage within the horizontal well unit. 4, a horizontal well unit order shall authorize and perfect utilization of all interest in the target formation as to tracts or portions of tracts included in the horizontal well unit. 5, if the applicant
Hello, this is Beth Voorhees. You're watching live coverage from the House Chamber as House Bill 2688, providing for the unitization of interests in drilling units in connection with all horizontal oil or gas wells, is being read in its entirety. That's what it sounds like when a bill is read in its entirety. Again, this tactic is used as a stalling tactic many times, or as a protest to a bill or an action. Certainly, Delegate Pat McGeehan, who has asked for this bill to be read in its entirety, will take to the floor after it's done to explain why he did that, or he may not. Crossover Day is never a good time to have a bill like this, 40 pages, read out loud in its entirety, because it does take up a lot of time that delegates want to use to move their bills out of the House today. But it's not as bad as if it's done at 11 o'clock on the final night. It's day 60 before midnight, and that can really add to the crunch of getting bills past the legislature. So it's not as crippling on crossover day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon as it would be on the final day, say at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But we are with you for another 10 minutes or so from the House of Delegates chamber. So let's listen in as they continue to read out loud House Bill 2688.
Expenses, provided, however, that the Commission may consider the net amount payable under leases where post-production expenses are permanent when determining the production royalty rate. Thereafter, the applicant and royalty owners and owners of leasehold, working interests, overriding royalties, and other interests in the associated unleased and oil and gas shall be bound by the order. Further, following an election by the executive interest owners to receive utilization consideration under this subparagraph B, their participating operators, including the applicant, to the extent of their interest in the horizontal well unit, will be the operator of the oil and gas as to be determined 7/8 interest, and the owner of the unleased oil and gas will be the executive interest, royalty owner as to determine 1/8 interest. Nothing contained in this subparagraph B applies to any lease in this state now in existence or entered into in the future, or to any award of utilization consideration made by the Commission other than the utilization consideration awarded to an executive interest owner of an unleased tract who elects to be considered leased pursuant to this subparagraph B. C, owners of oil and gas interests as to which there is no lease in existence who do not elect A or B of this subsection shall be considered to be a royalty owner with respect to 1/8 and an operator with respect to 7/8 of their ownership interest and may not receive utilization consideration. With respect to the 7/8, the owner may elect option 1, option 2, or option 3 hereinafter provided. 8, no utilization consideration may be required to be paid to any royalty owner who has consented or agreed to pooling utilization by virtue of the terms containing oil and gas lease pooling or utilization agreement or other agreement which permits pooling or unitization. 9. Any operator may elect to consent to participate in a horizontal well unit after an application is filed, subject to subdivision of this subsection. When the Commission issues a horizontal well unit order pursuant to this section, the Commission shall allow each non-consenting operator who does not elect to participate in the risk and cost of drilling in the horizontal well unit to choose from the following options. A. Option 1, to surrender the interest or a portion thereof to the participating owners or a reasonable basis for just an unreasonable consideration, which, if not agreed upon, shall be determined by the Commission. B. Option 2, to participate in the drilling in the horizontal well unit on a limited or carry basis or terms and conditions, which, if not agreed upon, shall be determined by the Commission to be just and reasonable. Or C. Option 3, to enter into a farm-out agreement, sublease, or other contract to permit drilling operation utilization with respect to the interest of consideration and on terms and conditions, which, if not agreed upon, shall be determined by the Commission to be just and reasonable. 10. If a non-consenting operator elects option 2, and owner of any operator in any operation portion of the horizontal well unit drills and operates or pays the cost of drilling, completing, equipping, and operating a horizontal well for the benefit of the non-participating owner as provided in the horizontal well unit order, and the operating owner is entitled to share production from the tracts or portions thereof subject to the horizontal well unit order accruing to the interest of the non-participating owner, exclusive of any usually consideration, royalty and overriding royalty reserved, and any leases, assignments thereof, or agreements related thereto, of the tracts or portion of the tracts until the market value of the non-participating owner's share of the production, inclusive of unitation consideration, royalty and overriding royalty, equals double the share of the costs payable by or charged to the interest of the non-participating owner. If an operator is an unknown or unlocatable interest owner, the operator shall be deemed to have elected option 1. 11. If a dispute arises as to the cost of drilling, completing equipment, and operating a horizontal well in a horizontal well unit form pursuant to this section, the Commission shall determine and apportion the cost within 90 days from the date of written notifications of the Commission of the existence of the dispute. 12. If the horizontal well unit approved by the Commission is not fully developed as approved in the order, the applicant shall file a request to modify the horizontal well unit with the Commission within 6 days from the latter of completion of all drilling activity within the horizontal well unit or the date that is 5 years after the most recent drilling activity in the horizontal well unit occurs. 13. An interested party may file an application to correct a clerical error in a horizontal well unit order at any time. 14. The applicant may file a request to modify a horizontal well unit order at any time. 15. If an operator has not drilled a well in horizontal well unit formed by the Commission within 5 years after the latter of either the drilling and completion of the horizontal well in the horizontal well unit or of the drilling completion of the most recent horizontal well within the horizontal well unit, as the case may be, an interested party may file a request to modify the horizontal well unit, and the Commission may modify the horizontal well unit. Upon the modification of the horizontal well unit, the Commission shall reallocate the allocation production from the tracts in the horizontal well unit from and after the modification order date, and the modification order shall be binding on the property subject to horizontal well unit order, and all owners thereof, their heirs, representatives, successors, and assigns for so long as the horizontal well unit order remains in effect. If the Commission determines that any party has been overcompensated, the Commission may authorize the applicant to withhold distributions to the overcompensated party and redistribute withheld monies to the appropriate parties. The operator may set off against any amount overpaid. 16. All operations, including but not limited to the commencement drilling or operation of horizontal well unit as portion of a horizontal well unit for which a unit order has been entered pursuant to this section, shall be considered for all purposes the conduct of the operation upon such tract or portion of the tract in the horizontal well unit. The portion of production allocated to each tract or portion of the tract included in the horizontal well unit shall, when produced, be considered for all purposes to have been actually produced from the tract by an oil and gas well drill completed and producing the tract. 17. Subject to the provision of subsection M of this section, where the Commission finds that the interests of one or more unknown or unlocatable interest owners are included in the horizontal well unit operator shall hold the monies payable to the owner in the account of the interest owner. 18. A horizontal well unit order under this section shall expire if a horizontal well unit has not been drilled in the horizontal well unit within 3 years of the date the order is final and non-appealable, unless the Commission extends the order for good cause. And if a well has been drilled within 3 years, the horizontal well unit shall continue in force and effect till the last producing horizontal well in the horizontal well unit is no longer capable of producing oil and gas. 19. Pursuant to this section, the Commission shall determine what is just and reasonable based on relevant evidence adduced at a hearing, including but not limited to amounts paid or consideration given in arm's length transactions in the vicinity of the horizontal well unit within a reasonable time prior to the hearing for transactions of the same nature and involving similar geologic conditions as that transaction being considered by the Commission. 20. So long as the order remains in effect, the horizontal well unit order shall be binding on the property subject to horizontal well order and all owners of the property and their heirs, representatives, successors, and assigns. G. Notice, timelines, hearings, and orders. 1A. For purposes of this section of the West Virginia Administrative Procedures Act, interested parties and parties means owners of the executive interest in the oil and gas and target formation within the horizontal well unit, including unknown, unlocatable, and executive interest royalty owners in the tracts or portion of the tracts to be included in the horizontal well unit subject to an application for a horizontal well unit order. Owners of unleased oil and gas to be included in the horizontal well unit, operators of all target formation acreage in the horizontal well unit, and operators of all oil and gas wells located in the unit that have been drilled to or through the target formation. B, bonded operators of well drills to or through the target formation that are not within the horizontal well unit but are located within 500 feet of a proposed horizontal well unit boundary may submit written comments regarding the horizontal well unit application at any time before the start of any hearing regarding the application, but are not interested parties may not participate in hearing nor have the right to appeal the Commission's decision regarding the application. 2, each notice issued in accordance with this section shall describe the area for which a horizontal well unit order is proposed in recognizable narrative terms and contained such other information as is essential to the giving of proper notice, including time and date of place and hearing. As soon as practicable, the Commission shall establish a website. Within 3 business days of the filing of an application under this section, the Commission shall publish on its website a copy of I, the horizontal well unit application notice required to be published pursuant to this section and Section 5 of this article, and I, the proposed horizontal well unit plat filed with the application. Both item has horizontal well unit application indexed by county and district where the majority of the acreage should be included and the proposed horizontal well unit is located, so that the plat and notice of application are readily accessible. Timely publication on the website for a period of business date of 10 business days shall be noticed to all operators. 3, upon request of any interested party or the Commission shall conduct a hearing and receive evidence regarding the application. All interested parties may participate in any hearing. If a hearing has been held regarding application, the order shall be a final order. If no hearing has been requested by the Commission or any interested party within 15 days after notice application is posted on the Commission website in accordance with subdivision of this subsection, the Commission may issue a proposed order and provide a copy of the proposed order together with notice of right to appeal to the Commission and request a hearing. To all interested party, any interested party aggrieved by the proposed order may appeal the proposed order to the Commission and request a hearing. Notice of appeal and request for hearing shall be made within 15 days of entry of the proposed order. If no appeal and request for hearing has been received within 15 days, the proposed order shall become final. If a hearing is requested, a hearing shall commence within 45 days of issuance of initial notice. The Commission may, upon written request, extend the date for the hearing, provided that the hearing must convene within 45 days of initial notice issued by the Commission. The Commission shall, within 20 days of the hearing, enter an order authorizing the unit, dismiss application.
And as House Bill 2688 regarding horizontal oil and gas wells continues to be read in its entirety on the House floor, you've been tuned to live coverage of Crossover Day, the 50th day of the 60-day regular session of the West Virginia Legislature. To continue watching the action, go to the legislature's website. Video and audio streaming are available there. The Senate is in recess until 5 o'clock this afternoon. We'll have full reports about today's actions tonight on the Legislature Today at 6:30 on West Virginia Public Broadcasting. Also, these program notes for you. Tomorrow morning at 8:30, we will provide live coverage of a public hearing on Senate Bill 35 to provide that any person 18 years of age or older may carry a concealed weapon within the boundaries of the state, including on or within municipally owned or controlled buildings, recreation centers, or properties without first obtaining a license to carry concealed deadly weapons. That's tomorrow at 8:30, live coverage of a public hearing on Senate Bill 35. And on Friday morning at 8:30, we'll carry another public hearing, this one on Senate Bill 423, to amend the Above Ground Storage Tank Act to address and correct certain unintended consequences of the original enactment. The program is now focused on tanks with a capacity of 10,000 gallons or more within zones of critical concern of public water utilities. Both of these hearings will be held in the House chamber beginning at 8:30. That's it for our coverage of Crossover Day. I'm Beth Voorhees. Thanks for joining us. Good afternoon.
Under this section, protect correlative rights, prevent waste, or ensure that royalty owners, notwithstanding the existence of unknown or unlocatable interest owners, a horizontal well unit order may be entered and developed. Drilling and production may occur in the horizontal well unit. Unknown and unlocatable interest owners of oil and gas in place not subject to lease shall be considered to have leased to the participating operators on terms determined by the Commission. Unknown or unlocatable interest owners of working interest in property subject to lease for an application file should be considered to have elected option 1 of this section. Opportunity of